Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much indeed, Bishop Odeko. We had announced at the end of the 23rd session, the last session,
Thank you.
and repeated the same announcement at the beginning of this 23rd session, that we would be concluding our public hearings at the end of April. We have since reviewed the work plan again, and as you saw yesterday, in the middle of a theme that we were considering, there's a focus on the justice sector institutions. We came up with a regional hearings item. That is likely to happen during the next 3 weeks or so until the end of May. After reviewing our program, we revised the calendar, and we are going to continue with these public hearings and the insertion of residuals as we go on until the end of May. And the report writing has commenced. It would continue, and also during the month of June, with the view to ending the work of the commission in June, at the end of June, as we have been, our mandate has been extended to the 30th of June. The details of some of the views that we expressed yesterday or concerning the extent, the work program, lead counsel, if you can just explain that to the public, I would appreciate it if you give the details.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to you all. We still have some bit of work to do in order to complete the mandated tasks. This list of outstanding activities really is based on an assessment of the evidence or the information that has already been collected. And we still do think that there are some gaps which need to be filled. And we have come up with a revised work plan, which would require us to continue holding some public hearings in the month of May, with a view to ensuring that we cover all the bases, so to speak. The first and the most significant work that we need to do is actually based on the mandate on the issue of enforced disappearances, where the mandate requires us to establish the fate and whereabouts of persons who have been disappeared. We have done extensive work in this area, but there still remains some work to be done. So the Commission would in-house, through evidentiary analysis, look at what has been done so far on this particular subject, and to establish or to determine which victims we were able to establish their fate and whereabouts, and those that are outstanding, and to also determine what is the problem with those particular cases, and what is the way forward. If the Commission finds that for the purposes of our work and the timelines that are available, this would continue to be a cold case for us, meaning that we have no possibility of making any significant headway, we would acknowledge that fact and try to make recommendations to the government in our report as to how to deal with these issues going forward. So that is a very significant aspect of the work that we have to do. I can confidently say that for many of the enforced disappearances, we have been able to account for the victims, to establish their fate and whereabouts during the course of the Commission's investigations. And I can just give a few examples. It's been the story that the government gave with regards to, say, Dabamaraina, Manlafikor, Aliulo, and others, was that they were being taken to Janjambure, and the vehicle in which they were somersaulted, and those individuals escaped. So that was the story. And when they escaped, they've not been seen again since. And that was a clear case of disappearance, because they were in the hands and custody of the government, and without any good explanation, they have not been seen since. But through the investigative work of the Commission, we have been able to establish that these people did not even run away or disappear as suggested by the government. They were executed by the junglers on the instructions of the head of state, and that they were buried in some unidentified graves somewhere in Kanilai. So when we look at the issue of enforced disappearances, these are the kinds of things we would be able to address in that particular report. And for those cases wherein, well, we have not been able to make any significant headway, for instance, the case of Kanyiba Kanyi, we should be able to explain that this is how far we have gone. This is the snag. We could not go beyond this point, and then we make recommendations for future activity. The other point we have to look at is some unlawful killings for which we had started an investigations, but we could not really carry it to conclusion. One example is Mariama Kamara, who was killed at Hamza Barracks together with her husband. We have established the fact of the killing, but we have not been able to establish who actually carried out the killing. But considering that these two individuals were in fact employees of the government in the armed forces, and they were killed in a government barracks, and the government did not take any significant steps in the investigations, would in fact seem to suggest some government interest or involvement. But we cannot leave it to assumption. We have to progress the investigation to its logical conclusion. So we will reassess this particular case to see how far we can take it, to see whether we can really reach a conclusion on this. The other issue is the attempted assassination of Honorable Justice Usman Silla. On this particular one, we were expecting some junglers to come and testify, but unfortunately, that could not happen because of certain unforeseen events that have recently taken place, making it impossible for the concerned witnesses to come and testify before the commission. As it is, the situation could change possibly later in the coming days or weeks. So we have developed a strategy as to how to put together the relevant evidence that is available out there on the attempted assassination of Honorable Justice Usman Silla. And in that regard, what we may do is try to put together all the open source material on it, including interviews by both the victim and other perpetrators. And then we put the evidence in through the investigating officer and see what the commission could make out of that. I think we should be able to make a compelling case of that in a public hearing. There are certain site visits that the commission should also carry out just for the purposes of completeness of the work. We have to visit certain interesting places, possibly in Kanilai and maybe outside the jurisdiction, with a view to trying to collect more forensic evidence about the situation in those places. I see Miss Commissioner Carr is raising something. I just do not wish to give full details of what this particular inquiry entails, and that is why I am skirting through some of the details. I'm sure you would understand the consideration behind that. Thank you very much, Mr. Carr. On the issue of the 30 December, there's been questions have been asked as to why the commission did not make that as a theme for investigations. We have to be brutally honest to the events that happened in this country. Much as many Gambians, if I may say, most Gambians would want to believe that as at 30 December 2014, Jammeh's government was illegitimate in the sense that it was a brutally repressive government against the Gambian citizens. That is a view that many people would hold. But nonetheless, it was still the lawful government of the Gambia. So an attack on that government would still be treason under the laws of the country, which makes 30 December attack a crime under the laws of the country, even though for some people it could be seen as a legitimate attack on an illegitimate government. But that is a matter for debate. But the commission is not necessarily so concerned about the politics of that. We should just remain focused on the law, and the law is that the attack was a crime. Our mandate is not necessarily to investigate crimes. Our mandate is to investigate human rights violations. And therefore, we cannot really put a focus on 30 December attack. Just like we did not put a focus on the Farafenni attack or on the Katong attack. But however, the aftermath of the attack of 30 December led to a lot of rights violations committed by the government. Like, for example, family members of suspected perpetrators being arrested and detained and sometimes tortured over extended periods of time. And that is punishment by association. You punish a person simply because the person is related to someone. So this aspect of 30 December attack has been investigated. But we are also considering the violations of rights of direct perpetrators of 30 December. And we are looking into the possibility of calling a witness or two on that particular subject. This is not really to denigrate or to trivialize the significance of 30 December in the political history of Gambia. No, we're just staying true and focused to the mandate, which is to investigate human rights violations. So 30 December attack would serve as a context into our investigation of what happened to those who were suspected to have been participants or related to the suspected participants. But that aspect has extensively been dealt with. We've called a number of witnesses on that, but still we're hoping that maybe we can call one or two more witnesses on that. The commission has also realized that its work is perhaps not felt in certain parts of the country. Some communities think that some of the rights violations that occurred there have not been dealt with in the commission. This certainly was by no means deliberate. We were guided by mainly gravity of events and also the complaints made by the people and the thematic approach to the investigations. But in order to ensure that we have reached as far as possible in all Gambian communities. We have decided to hold more hearings about rights violations that happened or may have happened in all other regions of the country wherein we have not had significant witnesses. And that is why yesterday we had victims from Jambanjeli. So hopefully in the coming weeks, we would hear victims from other places like LRR, CRR, or URR. Then there is this important allegation that has happened in this commission. And I use my words advisedly. It's allegation, simply because we've had only one or two witnesses or anecdotal evidence on this subject. This is the issue of missing babies or babies being sacrificed. The members, the audience may recall, or the commission may recall, the testimony of Silaba Samate, wherein he talked about on 3 separate instances where babies were brought to the NIA, and he believed they were being taken to Kanilai for sacrifice. The commission has also had evidence in private suggesting that babies were also sacrificed by the former president, Yahya Jammeh. So we have these two pieces of evidence on this subject matter. And the commission values the importance of addressing violations against children. And that is why we had a Gender and Children's Committee, which would look into gender-based violence and also violence against children. So the commission deems it important that this aspect, these allegations, be looked into with a view to seeing whether there is anything really to substantiate or to support it. So in that regard, the commission has devised a plan to look into this, and that may at some stage perhaps possibly crystallize into public hearings wherein we would receive evidence on this matter. But it's all a matter for investigations at this stage. It had partly been investigated, but it would require more investigations to move it from the realm of an accusation to at least maybe some prima facie case that these things did occur. So we would look into that. We had at the beginning of the year indicated that we hope to have sexual and gender-based violence hearings part 2. But the investigations has not really yielded sufficient evidence to warrant a second bite at the cherry. But there are certain residuals that the commission would want to look into. So we hoping to call at least 2 more witnesses on this. These 2 witnesses had been earmarked a long time ago, and their statements had been taken. But we were hoping that we would receive more, which would warrant an SGBV part 2. But as it is, we would have these 2 witnesses at least. And there are some significant residuals. There are some important witnesses who we still need to hear to give us a better understanding of what was happening, and to better give us a better understanding of who President Jammeh was and some of the things that he did. So for that, we have earmarked 2 important witnesses who we will call sometime this month to tell us more about these things. And of great significance also would be on the Langton Bongtamba case. Why that case? What actually happened? And who did what? We know who was charged with what. We know who are the witnesses, but we need to know the antecedents. We need to know the motives. We need to know the context, the underlying reasons behind that case. And that would, I mean, it would set the record straight, at least for the purposes of history, actually what happened in this country with regards to that. And finally, the last issue, the Commission is considering getting a women's perspective about the violations that happen in this country. We've done the SGBV, and I think we have had very important hearings on that. There is also an important report that was produced, I think it's by ICTJ, on the experiences of women during the 22 years of Jammeh. Certainly not all of that would be relevant for the work of the TRRC, but a good chunk of it is significant and is directly on the issues and really support the body of evidence that has been put together by the Commission. So to further validate that and to better enrich the material that's been collected, the Commission is considering calling at least representatives of women who would talk about the experiences of women generally on the issues that concern the Commission for the mandated period. So these are the issues that we hope to deal with during the month of May, and hopefully this would ensure greater completeness of the work of the TRRC and would further enrich the body of evidence that's already been collected. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, indeed, Council, for those details on regarding the supplementary items we are taking up now until the end of May. We will endeavor to complete these items as much as we can, and we would then continue working on the final report of the Commission and close business on the 30th of June, and hopefully present the report to the President a few days thereafter. But thank you again for those details. Council, if you're ready with this morning's witness, you may please proceed now.
Mr. Chair, my colleague Sagar Jahate would lead the witness. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, commissioners and members of the audience. We are ready to proceed, Mr. Usher. My apologies. The witness is by video conference, so the usher has nothing to do with it. I will refer it to the technical people. Thank you very much. Can we have the witness on the screen, please?
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Conteh, can you hear us?
Yes, hello, yes, I can hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We thank you very much for agreeing to testify before the TRRC.
Thank you for the invitation.
Are we having the Mandinka interpretation?
Yes, we are
Interpreters,
here.
Can we start?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Can you interpret what I have just said, or would you like me to repeat it?
Okay, repeat it. Let's go.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Conteh, and thank you very much for appearing before the TRRC this morning.
Akoy sama Mr. Conteh inumbara bake isonta ka finti TRRC nyatilung la nyinsumanda.
Thank you, Council, and thank you, TRC, and thank you to everyone who is involved in this process, and thank you for the invitation. to be here today.
Sedo fanang ay TRRC numbara ay council numbara ay mobe numbara fanang akase wota pour ka finti TRRC nyatelum la nyin somanda.
I understand it's about 4 a.m. over there. So we are really grateful that you're up this early to testify.
Council ko ngalon ko je talanna ni wato suba albewleto bari nyin ketanyen se wota isonta pour ka sede aroke.
Yeah, this poem here, but I'm so grateful. I mean, to be here, at least to give, TRC my view about the, regarding the subject matter of your investigation and proceedings.
Akata sewoti jona tonya talanna ni suba ifanale bewleto de bari midu nyin ketata fana sewoleti pour ka funti TRRC nyatilum la kumo membada pour ata finansio yitandi ka banke ka fomoli nyanta dia mu menkela.
Before we go any further, I would like for you to take the affirmation. Because you are not physically here with us, we are not able to swear you, unfortunately, but we are required to affirm you.
Abjanimbe luna kul kuna belafila nyinna pour abekole ko kaliole mdorong ibe menkel wairi mantara jam fonto dame be kurano dune bulu ye kali barbitun hanimbi ka bambandi ko ibina membe fra be kala to nyalti wala na laftola.
Can you kindly repeat? Can you kindly repeat after me? I affirm that.
I affirm that. I, Samsideen Conteh, affirm that.
I will speak the truth.
I will speak the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. As you know, my name is Sagar. We have already been introduced. I will be guiding you today in your testimony.
Ako yalo nyamem ato musagar ledi komando albendanu ayafa itandila yalo ne.
You can hear the interpretation in the background from Mandinka to English and vice versa. We also have various other interpretations into the local languages. So please take very short statements.
Akabe la mani an lenyin ko kanna soro nyi ba mo la duma la ni nyini ngaro kera bar hanin kabi fanan kango dol fanan be kanna sor kanne siyo kono ja.
Okay. All right.
To also avoid overlap in our speeches, kindly listen to my questions first before you respond.
Nung hanin kabi abeda an la fanan ninga nyini ngaro ke isi wati dandam bula folo janni be jabro gale saje alla kuma kawol nyin ite selala nyoka.
Okay.
I understand you're also quite soft-spoken, so we would appreciate if you would project your voice so that we can hear you more clearly.
Nunga imfana mfam la kwela dia monying ka mang saribake bari si kang si kan domanding purung yela dia monying moy.
Yeah, and I will do my best.
We will appreciate that.
Dia la nyebak.
Just to give you a brief overview of what we'll be discussing this morning.
Puruka silo itandila domanding rom be fanal men ka chala nyin somandalna.
It's going to be on a very discrete issue on judicial interference.
Abekela kule de me yalon ko kidio tamandirinya me yalon ko walka kenung dabulo menga ka ko nyindo.
We would like you to give us your experience whilst you were acting as a magistrate in the judiciary.
Bela fla ite kachanye kulo me melon ko la me yalon ko wala ketela nu tumala men wato munun kiti lati kiti bundar.
I hope everything is understood and you're ready to begin.
Njikita ya be famlen lafta men nandu be parere na purunga kachanye ndamuta.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, kindly give us your biographical information, including your name, your date of birth, and your occupation.
Ndema ba ye to ni konton dina ni ifam ikibaro menti anila wuluta mintola wuluta sanju mala fana.
Yes, my name is Samsideen Conteh.
Ntomu Samsideen Conteh.
I was born in Faraba Bantam Village, Conteh East District, West Coast Region.
Mbuluta Faraba Bantale bitum Brikama Tundo lem jeti.
When were you
Yes,
born?
My date of birth is August 17, 1982.
Mbuluta August Tiltan Nimurabulo 1983.
82, I believe he said.
82.
And where do you currently reside?
Sain tembe jamano men to be sabatri min tole.
Mr. Conteh, where do you currently reside?
Mr. Conteh bela iko sain tembe sabatri min tole.
Mr. Conteh, can you hear us?
Ikam moyle ba?
I've lost you for a moment. I don't know how.
All right, but can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Great.
Sain tembe ko be sabatri min tole.
Kindly tell us where you reside now.
I'm at Kent, Washington State.
Mbe Kent, Washington, Tundo Kang.
In which country, please?
Banku juma.
USA, United States of America.
United States of America, Bangkok Kang.
And that's obviously why you can't join us today here at the TRRC in the Gambia.
Amunda bitang be bitilo mendo dang inimbe nyomo ka wolto be sabatri ndamendo.
Yes.
Ade mbe wolto.
Kindly give us a brief history of your education.
Kumala sutun kamarong ila londo nyin karango nyi ya damur damira ning faya kumfa damento tari ko nyin sata nyaba.
I attended Farabanta Primary School.
Nga follow Farabanta Primary Karambungol to.
From 1988 to 1994.
Kabo 1988 kata 1994.
Then from 1994 to 1997, I attended Nusrat Junior Secondary School.
Between Birimbata to 1988 for 1994 mbe Nusrat Karambungol to.
I joined Nusrat Junior 94 to 1997.
Nga follow 94 Nusrat Karambungol to for 1997.
Then 1997 to 2000 and Nusrat Senior Secondary School.
Ndata Nusrat la Karambumbato kabo 1997 kata 2000 Sangokang.
Then after 2001, I joined Gambia College. I was Gambia College from 2001 to 2004.
Ndata Gambia College kadamura 2001 kata 2004 Sangokang.
Can you kindly tell us what course you were pursuing at the Gambia College at the time?
Gambia College aro benebe londi karango la je. Ibi mfanna juma le karang kanje.
It was high teachers certificate.
Nga ITC le karanje nga HTC le karanje higher teacher certificate wala mkaramundo moro la makamo le moti.
Please proceed.
Tenten.
Then year 2008, I joined the University of the Gambia Faculty of Law.
Between 2008 ngintata Gambia la University oto ila fanna menka lua karangoke ndunta oto.
After you finished your HTC course at the Gambia College, did you pursue any teaching after that?
Briela HTC karango bang college o nyinto fo inata na dun karandum to moriala la bang.
Yes, I taught for some time, but it was I had some other issues because I was not just into that. So I taught for some time, and I decided that I should just quit and join university.
Ha nga karandiro kele wati sutunga mawo mebake bitum bari bitu wiring hammo mankenu woti nga karandiro kele rondo mandin nata boto tumole nata dun university onyinto.
Please proceed.
Tenten.
Yeah, so at university, I did my 4-year LLB program.
University oto nga sanjinani karango kije memu LLB makamoti.
Can you tell us what the LLB program is? What kind of degree is it?
First of all, LLB program wonying mundri sifalam.
Is the bachelor's in law.
ka fole bachelors loi karangola karola.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Inumbara tenten.
So I completed the program 2012.
No programo bang
May.
mekaro no programo bang mekaro kono 2012.
Then I had an opportunity to join the judiciary after that as a first-class magistrate.
Alay bunda ele nyawtu mole nata dun na kito tamandi bunda la na kiti bunda nyina kadunje kake magistrate.
Then I worked for briefly, then we joined the bar program at the Gambia Law School to do the bar professional course.
Nga karang nga odo ko ke wati sung bitu nata muru kana londo lafa ba program wala wafanamu lua do ku bunda la karang leti intentenda o karang fanana.
And how long did you work as a magistrate before you went to pursue your bar?
Janni bela nyim ba kala itarta kitindiro kenyala fo wati jelu kake kitindir ladi.
It was, I believe, was 2 to 3 months because I was appointed June, July, August, September. I believe September, October, we started the bar program.
Na mera kari sabalonde kadu June lem nga damuta July kata August karo kang bitungo tambiru lemu nata na nyimba programo damuta.
And how long did the bar program last?
Nyimba program mo nying ayeta wati jellala.
It was for a 1-year program from September to June. I think that's when we did the exam.
Wo amunta sanji kililong kabo September karo kono lenga dati kata June kang.
Did you do it here in the Gambia and where?
Yela nyimba program mo yake Gambia jan anu minto le fanamu.
Yes, I did the bar in Gambia at the Gambia Law School. It was situated.
Ha nga karang ke Gambia la University of Tojang nga na
Gambia Law School.
Gambia la lua karambuto.
It was situated at it was opposite the former parliament building.
Amonta utumo aninna deputy bumba follow le betilindi nu nyola karang nga kedamin.
That is on the Independence Drive in Banjul.
Independence Drive bedo nyim Banjul sata kono.
Yes.
Jelem.
Okay, thank you very much. And after you finished your bar, were you successful? And what did you do after that?
Biri yela nyim ba program mo karang nyim bang. Fo inata na ganyele bang andu inata na muneke kotenke.
Yes, I passed the bar.
Ha nga banyi nga ganyele.
I understand you did very well as well. My apologies for interrupting you. I understand you did very well during your law degree.
Nganyim faham le ko ya kata bakel nu ila degree program nying wato mene ba karang kan ya kata bakel.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Fo ise ko ndim fo no nyawoto ba.
Well, I believe, yeah, I tried because I graduated for the University of the Gambia as the best graduated law student 2012-2013.
Nga katabakele katu nga karang ketumo men na hanfo nga londi kondi boke. Bitun tel ngbe baka matakela to men nan tata talibo le kono men yalon ko telem talibe nyaton koluti men ye ganye baso ton o loi karang la karola wo bundala.
If you don't mind me saying so, I believe you did better than try.
Ni ngamere nsafo no ya kata bakel wala fizara ka foko nga katale.
I believe I tried.
Ngamere de latala ko nga katale.
Thank you for your modesty, but you should be very proud of yourself. So what did you do after you finished your law school?
Then I went back to work.
Muruta do kuala.
And where did you go back to work?
Itara do ko la mintole.
I was posted to CRR North.
yen samba janjambure tundole kan CRR la Kabu Karola, CRR North.
Mr. Conteh, can we just go a little bit back? Because you have already told us that you served as a magistrate even before you went to do your bar. Kindly tell us where you served when you started as a magistrate up to the point where you actually were posted after your law school.
Mr. Conteh ngamurun ko madomanding afanya bang ko mando ya afanya no biri yela university program woni bang yesa ke kiti obunda nyine nyatne tombon ke kiti telati biri ye kiti telati yesa mbado ko la mintole nung anu janni kabri yela ba fana nyimba yem samba minto janni be fudala wor.
First, after my appointment, I was attached. I did my induction at the Banjul Magistrate Court.
Bitung birina ko lo pareta karamla karola nga ko follow Banjul Magistrate kiti bundala.
And I believe this was Alagbe.
Na mera otumo memu kundon koti je ka fayne Alagbe.
What was his first name and where was he from?
Ato follow dung anu abora mintole.
I believe his first name is Matijao, something like that.
Na mera to follow aseke for Tairo tibam misila wala.
And I believe he's from Nigeria.
Lata lokabota Nigeria le fanang.
Do you know if he was recruited locally or on technical assistance?
Ya ala ndam fo ala sababu ka nati do gola jam fo ya kurukuru gambia jande bang fo ya boni na manele ya nati jam pura ina de maro.
I believe, he was recruited locally.
Lata la ko ya tab do kola banko kan jam fangoleto.
And how long did you spend at the Banjul Magistrates Court?
Anu itara kiti oteyola Banjul kiti bundato fo wati jelu.
It was for a month.
Nakarnan lekije.
How long did your training last?
Ila in karandiro nyeke karande puriyo ke kiti telati ay wati jelelta.
It was for a month. The induction was for a month.
Abo datiro adamuto kat lung woto karina ni ngawle kewoto.
Did you sit on any cases?
A month.
Karkilin nekije.
Did you sit on any cases on your own during that period at Banjul Magistrate Court, or the entire period was spent training under Magistrate Taiwo Alagbe?
Fo ila karang wato nyinkono wati nana soro ndalama ite fang ye fansu ndia mota ya kiti ya fo yelo kama beke Alagbe le kotoba be karandi kan kasilo litandira kiti kata nyame.
Usually I believe, and I was attached to him, and so if he's in court, I will sit next to him.
Wairi yentela do ko nakindi atele bala natebe kito labe kiti bunkono ndeka si atele dala.
So you were not sitting on cases independently?
Amunta inana ibuka si fayi ka kiti ota ifangwe ifansunta ifansun kiti oke ifangwe.
Yeah, no, at that time I didn't sit on cases. I was with him.
Hani wotembo mamfansun kito luta between wairi mbatele bala nkasi atele bala.
And after you finished your period at Banjul, what happened thereafter?
Biriyela karong nyimbam Banjul inata muna inata ke kotanke.
Then I was posted to Bundung Magistrate Court.
Biriyo pare la tele muinata nsamba Bundung Magistrate Court ya nsamba wotoleto do kuala.
And how long were you in Bundung?
Izarta Bundung kiti bundato fo wati jelu.
I believe it was about a month or so. Then I was moved to Conteh.
Ngamera asike ko ngakarole kije biringo botala lo minata nsamba kotake Kanifing.
Were you sitting on your own at Bundung, or were you still on the training?
Wato mena yesamba Bundung kiti bundato fo han kabi kasi ifa yena beka kiti yolta ifa yebang fo han kabi be mola koto.
Yes, I did. I sat on few cases.
Mbadu ngakito ludolu tale mfangwe wato membije.
And who was the principal magistrate at the time at Bundung?
Bundung je kiti bundaro jumala munum principal o je memu nyaton ko de kiti ndal bila nyaton ko o wato la je.
At that time, I can't remember clearly who was.
Wotembong hakilo mamutano dal jumale mu nyaton koti je utumo.
That's all right. Then after a month, you were moved again to Kanifing Magistrates Court.
bete ata amunta kabri ye karikili nyongo ke bundunje inari ne saundi ke samba Kanifing kiti bundaro fana.
Yes.
And how long did that last?
Weta for wadi jelu.
It was about a month too. Then we returned to law school to do the bar.
Namere ofanan karkilin wuce o ngawla kije bitum biro batala lom natamta muru katanna ba karamoke.
And during this time, do you know why you were frequently posted? Why the frequency in the different postings you had from Banjul to Bundung and then to Kanifing in a very short period of time?
Andung fokabula o wato nyinkono. Ite alonda ba wa dalilo me asabu ki yesa undin samdi yesa mba follow Banjul yebondi Banjul yesa mba Bundu yebondi Bundu yesa mba Kanifing o wati surundi nyinkono. Bi alonda dalilo me asabu ba.
I believe because I was appointed by when I applied. I was appointed by that time. The Chief Justice was Justice Ajim.
Ngalo wotumo wairi yenteta kutakele memu Chief Justice ti wotumo ikafole Justice Ajim wotumo wale mu Chief Justice ti memmarta kitola.
So Ajim, I met Ajim taught us at the University of the Gambia Land Law.
Ajim yenkarandi le Gambia la University oto menketa banko fanan Kenya la luati banko keno lua.
So I'm not sure if I'm smart, but maybe he believes I'm smart because I believe I did very well in his courses.
Bitum malo fo nte fango kungo nta fola ko nyamentale bari bitum atefe nyamentale wala na bitum ayo kulu ke proka wo karango ke aninka o makamulu ta bitum wo dalilo le be sabu la ngambira ataajal ko nyamentale do ko nyindo.
So maybe he saw something in me. That's why he wanted me to go through those courses.
Namera kule jenteto wotumo bitum wadalilo le ya sabu atelafta prunte ngadung wo karan silo lula na wo silo ta nyanta tala nyamin purkatenten do ko nyinkono.
In your view, Mr. Conteh, the frequency of your transfers, did it have any adverse effects on the dispensation of justice?
Ite la mira lodo nyi saundi o me alon ko e be bulari nyono ma ila karola fa ite la mira lodo pour ka tonya sabatindi molla kitiol kono ba yamra e ko le al sabu imagine ba.
If I can just elaborate some more, I'm sure in those different courts you went to, because of the time limits, you were not able to perhaps start and finish any particular case before you were transferred.
Ninga transahan kabinsa akono fanu ninyi hani domandi wala nyinti ko nyinkiti ol sabunda sabol be sambala dinkirato esi kiti o doltaje ite kumvala folo yesa undi kiti bunda do yo fanan damuta ite o kumvala be o sifanda.
Yes, it did, because some of the files I remember when I was going through some of the files before some witnesses finish their testimony, you have to be moved to another court and keep moving. So it definitely affected even the speed and the process.
Aye kitolu dolu male katu hani failo lu nyulu fonglu meni ya lonko kadum bulo kono ninge jibe nga kulu menu dati nin tata domandi ndrong isaje wo sawndirolu no keta wo o katarle wo mambang nsita karadola yo wode wo muto nyalti ay kulu nasindle domandi do ko nyin na karola
an sedol fanan kidol beje ni la sedandro damuta hani buka bandron ite sawundi.
In fact, that is what I was going to come to. I believe that, or perhaps I should throw the question to you, do you believe that the different transfers or the frequency at which magistrates were transferred at the time affected the speed of cases, or did it contribute to the delays in cases?
Anung han kabi lafta nala no nyini karole fa itala miralo ya miralo ko magistrate ni wala nyin kitin telalti ila wato wati sutun soundon ke bondin kidi bunda do ya samba kidi bunda do itala miralo ya mira woye ke diamol ni molla diamol men ike muda akela bango nyi aka tariandi le bang fo aka mendi le bang.
Oh yes, definitely did affect the process. And the process is delayed some because
Ha to nyala ay kitolu jamal le nasindi ke sumayandi katunie kuma ya pakidrong ma bang lota bo akakuo mendile.
yeah, for me, if I start a case, I would definitely want to try to finish it within a very reasonable period of time, but they keep moving, and that definitely affected this and the speed of the process.
Nta mumoltima yalon ko nga kitimen damuta nkala file nga atamandi wati kanyandi nkono nga bang anyanta kala nyamin bari bitunyi soundiro wonata sabule hanfo wo kitolu meni yalon ko nke paki ikanasi kamme wala kadukundiro sabu wo kitol la karola.
So from Kanifing Court, that's when you went to the Gambia Law School, and subsequently, when you finished that, you were posted to CRR.
Munda kabo Kanifing Court biribota Kanifing kiti bundaro wato la mitate la londi makamo nyinka kumva wala mitate la luwa karango nyinna Gambia Law School biriyo banna minata na murundi do kola ko memu kiti ndirladi hanka bi yesa unde janjambure tundo kan.
Yes, Councillor.
Ha kita wanyala.
And in which particular district in CRR were you posted?
CRR memu janjambure tundo kan yesa mba sefu tundu jumala kan.
It was CRR North, and Conteh.
Amunta CRR North wala CRR Kabu Karola nga folo janjambure kaboto nga tentendule wala nyama hanfo natafuta Conteh.
You were a traveling magistrate.
Munda ete mu kiti telad me yalon ko e ka murumurunne e ka tamale.
Yes.
Ntemu kitindirlali men katani na.
Can you tell us how your role as a traveling magistrate was? I mean, how would you conduct your cases, or how would you preside over cases in all these different regions you were posted to?
First of all, commission hani kabri yeke nyi kiti telat me alon ko ikatamale kata dingirani kabu dingira kata fu dingira. First of all, commission ay ikela do kol nyi landi nyaadi landu ka do kol nyi ikela siyo nyi ke mintole.
So I mean, I used to allocate some days to a specific vacation, for instance, in Janjambure.
Nka kitolu sotole dinkiral to komisali kama nin kumem damento nka ke to komisali kama nin Janjambure mu nsake Janjambure.
So for instance, on Monday I was sitting in Janjambure.
Komisali kama tenango nsisi Janjambure.
Then Tuesday to Conteh.
Talata lungu misali kama isaje nsita Conteh.
And Wednesday probably at Kaur.
Isaje ning arabo mu jama isaje nsita Kaur.
But I mean, later on, some of those cases, I mean, dropped because I was trying to be very fast with, I mean, some of the work that we was doing.
Bitum bring quota tafanya ta wo kitolu na tatala katunte nga katale purka jeko kitolu ninga memmadro nga tamandi tariya kono me yalon ko satarate mela ate dukundila anyama wala na ntenga na kulu tamandi onya.
Can you tell us what necessitated the need for a traveling magistrate in those regions?
First of all, hani kabi mune jare tala puruka manji kiti tela samba o dingira puruka tama o dingira bere ka bo dingira kada bo dingira.
I believe that, I mean, every citizen in that country should have access to justice, and not just justice, but the quality is also important. So.
Lata lako mobe daoda nin kuketa inyanta tilingu nin tonya soton naleje wodali lole ya sabu ngalo wole nyintani na sabu andu kiti wakita kumaya talenga ke anyama hanfo ko anyanta tela tamala nyamin aike onya.
So there was no permanent magistrate in any of these regions, and that is why you had to travel from place to place. Is that correct?
Amunta kiti tela te nyin dingira do me yalon ko abe sabatiri njele. So wala ya sabu yete sambaje puri kari tama kabu dingira do kara dingira do.
Yes, ma'am.
Ha.
And was that as a result of scarcity of magistrates to do this, to be posted there permanently?
Fo dalilo membe ko ma wala nyindi ko magistrate wala mkiti tela nyingi dasatal no wala sabu nyima rono bam pour que sambaje wala taraje wato bela.
Yes.
Ha wala mtonyati.
And do you believe that as a traveling magistrate, you were able to do justice to all of those cases in all of those regions, or did you face some challenges?
Fo ila ranyina lako kake kiti tela do me yalon ko ikatama ka bo dingira kara dingira do ika tilu to nyani tilu mo sabati no nyi molien no bang fo ka kolya ko dol sore.
I mean, yes, I definitely had some issues, and that was one of the reasons I believe I was transferred from Jambure to Farafene and SM.
Tonya kodolu kake koleale nka kolea kulu dolu takile lata la fangol nata ke dalilo ti meya sabu ina tambondi janjambure kansaundi kansamba farafenye
An SEO.
aning SEO.
And what are some of these issues?
Muna kake nyin ko dolti nyin kolea ko dolti.
I mean, I had an encounter with the governor at that time. He was
Utumo governo wole kumandango ti memmarata o dinkirato kutamatale na tema.
Sorry, Mr. Conteh, I wasn't able to hear you very clearly. Can you repeat what you said?
Murungam ba yemen fo ba mamoy.
I mean, I had it to the governor at that time.
Amunta ko yemun governor mun fen governor façon.
What was?
Amunta kule soto dala ning governor nyin tema kule dunta ning governor tema.
Can you tell us what issue you had with the governor and who was he?
Afanya ba yene governor nyi memo kumanda nyi ina ye mun kule soto anu atara mu jumati no.
And so the governor at that time was, I believe, was Mr. Ganye Toure.
Governor membije wole kumanda nyin wotumo ikafa ne Ganye Toure.
So when we went there, because we were directed to where I was posted,
And
we were directed to go and meet the governor. As usual, maybe that was the protocol.
Mio adumbri yen abdo ko saundi je ye nyina fonyen kon sitanga futa governor ma na nyati li nyola kakulu bo nyoto katu wole sarto li nyil tamandi nyati.
So we had some issues like our accommodation. I mean, there was no place for a man.
Ko kole amu memfoloti wole mnyinti ko jia dula kuo walafta kala mbulu kole ya kuoti puru nyanta jia la dinkira mento mbe tarla dame.
So we had to. I was speaking for myself. I was directed to go and see him because he was the governor. He knew the place, so he could help. Because the judiciary, I mean, I don't think that's even proper.
Yo bitumbiri woketa yen sambaje inatanyi ne fanyanga futa atema atelo governor atele ijelong pour atasimako rodin tella nyanta jia la damento mbetar la damento pour asemako pour ka odinkira nyini nyanta sila damento.
I was going to ask whether that was the role of the governor or the judiciary. I mean, who should have provided you with the proper resources to do your work as a magistrate, considering the fact that, you were traveling from one place to another.
Lafte nyini ngala wala no fa itela mira lo no fang gomu kumanda nyini na do ko wolti bam pour ka dinkira nyini yete be sabat la dame ngamera fo kiti bundani mumem marling do kiti rukunya la wala la do ko moti pour ite la do ko ke dukeno anyama tumara men na ite mu kiti tela te me yalan ko e katamal ka bo dinkira ta ka bo kata dinkira.
Exactly, and I didn't have to pay the price. At some point, the place I was not allowed to stay there, and I had to go around by myself looking for a place to leave. It was just.
Umuto nyalti katu mbenun damento inata afole puru manyan natarla woto bitungo tumole ntafangole kuno wulita mbe murumuru na be pur katara dula nyini mfango yenyanda tarla dameng wo de wo mfango yo kele pur kadinkira nyini mfaye.
Considering the nature of your job, wasn't that a bit risky?
Ite yeni ya jube ila do ko nyin alhalo be lare nyame fo ite ya imamira fana manke kudi melon ko jawiya talaba.
It was because I had to look for a place that was not even safe for me. But maybe sometimes I'm just stubborn. But I just wanted to serve the people, and as long as my conscience is clear and I don't fear anything.
Umuto nyalti wode akole atalde barbitum wairi nte lafta do ko kala na moli ka do ko ken na bankoe woda lilo le yasabu mfana wakil tanga usilota katu nte mo molti me alonko hakilo kono abesenari nen sondo mo besenari na miraro fana besenari wala nyama wala na wakil tanga okulu tamandi onya.
And even though you wanted to serve your country and the people, as you say, the conditions of service were not very good.
Hani kabi wonya nyarande nyama ibe watu yangani ya kendo nyisire purka duko ke la moli memu la banku dingolti but hani kabi wonya kino nyama fana mbari al halo nyimbe lari nyama no inyana duko ke la nyamen amanke kudi me yarongo ajanguda o nyama.
He was terrible.
Akoleatal nunde.
Did that attract people to the post? Is that one of the reasons perhaps why there was a scarcity of magistrates at the time?
Ima mira wala ko nyin al halo be lari nu nyame nu ya ino mira wala fana ya sabu fana go kiti telal muka soto nonu dango do yata nu do ko nyin.
Yeah, absolutely, because what I've experienced, I was at some point I wanted to quit, but you just have to sometimes just have to stay.
Abeunyare de katu kwenye kole atale watu wafona atasoto watu me yalon konti tata han mpare tandahala iyo barbitu ne ajube dal wakil tanko mbatunga akatanga ajube mfaye drong wale ntuje.
You've said that no proper arrangements were made for your accommodation. What about vehicles? Did you have a vehicle that was taking you from place to place?
Ya fo jango man ko landi nunga nyama nyana landi la nyama purila sabati dinkira anila ku kotango dol silandum tamara nu yewdi albu moto.
Yes, I had a vehicle, but later on my vehicle, when I moved to Farfanya, that was when the vehicle broke down again, and I had similar encounter with the judiciary, and because it wasn't fixed, I had to use my own resources, my own money to fix the vehicle.
Abeu nyale nga moto soto le nung bare birin nata sawun kata fara fenye moto nyin nata ello soto wotumole so nga ko nyin nin kiti bunda nyin nata ntilinyo la wokuwa kama yo bare bitum birin akonyi manna bonyoto wato nata soto nkam fansun kodo leta katama kata nyin do ko la nyin dinkiral to nyanda tal damenuto.
And this was the official vehicle that was allocated to you by the judiciary?
Amunda nyimu moto de me yalon ko kitio bunda nyin ila nyaton ko nyin wonde o moto nyin tayadi la pour yake la do courant.
Yes.
And during the time that the vehicle was had a breakdown, were you able to actually do your work, or how were you able to get to the different places you needed to be?
Wato men nyimu moto nyin men tata fati nyata ikela do ko nyin keno nyaadi le ko tumala men do kiti tela de me yalon ko ikatamal ka bu dingira kata dingira.
Yeah, so when I had the issue with the governor, because first there was a particular case.
Birinin ko nata soto kuda ta dunnin governor tema katu kiti dole nata soto kito me yalonko.
It was about giving false information to the president.
Wo kito tilinta mena wala mnyinti ka kuma soto balo ka kibar soto balo di president wala.
Do you recall the name of the case?
Yes, nyingo kiti nying ato yalo ne ba.
No, I can't remember the name.
Aning hakilote wo mutanola nyin tembeng.
That's fine. Can you just perhaps give us a brief summary of the facts so that we understand the context?
Abedera ni ma hakilo ma di case ni ma tolong sa in case ni tata nyame afanyam bro.
The accused person was accused of giving false information to the office of the president.
Yemen tumi moni ya tumi nyina la kwa kibar soto balole di president la office auto.
I believe he wrote a letter to the former president, Yahya Jammeh, about the governor.
Ngalong amari letero le safe letero me ya lon ko governor la kulu Kenya ayole safe je ka letero ki president oye.
Was it the same governor that you mentioned before?
Okumandan kilingo la mbaye men to fonu command.
Yes.
Ha wole mate kumandan kilingulom.
Kindly repeat his name for us.
Murun kambang ya fo bang.
Atomo Ganyi Tureleti.
All right, thank you. Please proceed.
Inumbara tendeng.
And so he was being prosecuted because I found the case file there.
Namlo ibate fango kiti ndikane katundenga ukito la file fango tarajele.
So when I went through the file.
Bilimfuta taje nga file nyin soto tumome na nga kono jibe ka kolu karang.
And then I thought to myself, because the office of the president is in Banjul.
So nga konyi njube nga miram faye nko woto president la office obe fo Banjul.
So I thought, with respect to the territory, I think the proper jurisdiction would be Banjul.
Bitun kumembelari ngonya wairi president la office obe Banjul woto ngani mutako kito nyin na ladula tilindi ngo wonyanta kala Banjulu sate wale konoti.
So I thought maybe it was ideal to transfer the case to Banjul because
Bitun wala nante fana nata nyi miro soto puru woto nyin kito mbatu nga saundi aita Banjulu yeta ko nyin kiti woto.
Was the accused person resident in CRR at the time?
Fo tumbi morning fo am molti me alan ko abe sabatri in CRR tundola kamba.
Yes, I believe he was from CRR.
Allah taala mari benun CRR le.
Okay, kindly proceed.
Tendeng.
So the governor didn't like that.
Tumbringa oke onyaka kito saundi wo manna dia kumanda unyi yede amandi ya governor ifreng.
Immediately I did that. Usually because we used to go to his residence, so I was called.
Biringa oke onya durong wotumo lem inatante kumandi puru nyin kamala ngatandang kung atela.
But he wasn't speaking directly about the issue, but I can sense that he wasn't happy.
La kumakango lukono. Amunta kumo samba nyaming amang kumo nyimfo atola baribitung kumo nyintanya ya itandiko abe nyim kukari lela kumo lufokan.
And then after that, there was one case.
Biriwa botala kiti dona to soto.
Somebody, it was I believe it was a civil case.
You believe it was?
Civil case.
Wale moni mote makito.
Before we move on to the next case, kindly tell us why you felt that Governor Toure was not happy with the decision that you made.
Janni betende no kiti fulanya nyoni la flamena kumo forata afu fo yalo ne dalilo me asabu birite o kan nyinta pour ka o case nyinta kidia mo nyinta ka saundi na Banjul yalo dalilo me asabu kumanda onyin amanse o kan nyinka yementa.
Yeah, if the case was in Banjul, I think because I felt something was not wrong because the accused person even came to his residence, and I thought it was an awkward moment.
Na mera konyin tata nyamindal alafta keja uyale kato hani yemen tu mifango anatale fao ate fango la bungoto yo bitun kolu natala nyaming dal aketa ku kolengol ti dal.
Probably he was just using his powers to intimidate.
Musafo no fang abala sembole tamandi kam pour ka Mario silandi.
Sorry, who was using his powers to intimidate who?
Jomala be munafang kong wala sembola no pour ka nyuma silandi.
The governor to intimidate the accused person was the
Amunta governor lebe tumi monyi silandi kan ala sembola.
And do you know whether or not he was also interfering in that particular case?
Yala ne bang fanam fo imalo bang fo ate governor nyi mema ate commando nyi fo aba dabula kan o kitio nyi fanam kono le bang.
You know, interestingly, I've learned that, you know, because that, I mean, they used to influence certain magistrates who were I mean, around the area.
Nata men korosi je. Wala mnyindi ko nkafo men naten kadabula kitol to kitirila dolu menu fanawlu men ya lonko tambitani njela. Nata nyinje ko aka ala kango dundi wolu konole aka hammo dundi wolu kono purate lafta kola nyamin ay tamawonya.
Could that have been one of the reasons why the case was moved closer to home so that the governor could have direct access to the magistrate?
O ila miraro wala manke ko nyinde dalilo me asabu ye nyin kidio nyinta ya saundi ka sutiandi sula isaje suo kono le isaje governor memo commando nyinde isaje asisilo soro no nyinka kango soro nyin kidio kono.
Yes, because I believe I've heard it. I mean, they influence a couple of magistrates and tell them, like, you do this, I mean, tell them to do this, and then you do it or you face the consequences. So I've heard him say that, like, my combination magistrates.
Amunta keta wale nyama katu mbata nyinkala mangamo kitindirla ludolo aka kangole diwo la kafoyen ko iba kela tenne ibe nyin kukari kela tenne ni wonte ni ma woke ibe nyatili na kole ya kula le men ya lonko ibe takila amunta dala tengani yo munyine ti puru ate yo magistrato la ko tamandi nyama ate lafta kolu ye kenyamin pour ka wolu dundi woto.
And who did you hear that from?
Yo mo jumala la karola.
He himself. I mean, because I mean, we used to, I mean, visit him at this place. You know, which was later on.
Amunta te fangolo kadu wati soto ntankatale ala dinkirato. Wairi nkataje nkataraje bitu mfereti je ko kundi ntamata je fo ay lankena man nga longa kunyi ntamata nyamin. Wairi nkatala dinkirato le.
You heard it directly from the horse's mouth.
Amunda yamo ya tafangolo da kono.
Yes, yeah.
Ngama ya fangolo.
And was he able to do, my apologies, was he able to do the same thing with you?
Fo oku kilingo nyakiro nyama fana wala kede fana naba.
Yes, and he even went up to the office of the Chief Justice and reported me there.
Ayoleke andu amanda woto ate tatale hanfo Chief Justice fangola office oto katante kalamije.
My question was he able, sorry, Mr. Conteh, let's just give a few seconds between my questions so that we don't overlap.
So demanding, isaje na diamol nyinkana sela nyoka.
I was asking whether he was able to interfere with your functions as a magistrate at the time.
Nkame nyininga ole nyindiko fo ay silo soro la bampurka dabula no ila kidio nyinkono waro mene munu kidi telati.
Or perhaps I should say whether he succeeded at doing that.
Waranto nsafo no nyinyala kafoko fonnu aganyeta le bampurka ka oke kaduka dadung itela kidio tamandiri nyato.
He tried, but
Aya katale de bara amante kalanno amamalankunno.
So you were quite different from the previous magistrates that he was able to manipulate.
Amunda ede kidi tela de me yalon ko ifarata la ini do nyol men yalon ko wolle lo benu je jannita binaje.
yes.
Please proceed.
Tenten.
Yeah, because at some point I was so angry.
Katu watina ta soto kamfata le numbake.
In fact, I even wrote a letter to him.
Han fonga letero fango safe kaki ate fango ye.
That if he continues to interfere in my work,
Ning a continue ta kadabula ntela do kuoto.
I was going to arrest him.
Mbitala le ngamuta.
And how did that go?
But
Hukulara nyadi le.
my clerk, who was Abdullah Sankare, he told me, no, forget it, ignore him.
Nakla ko tumo ka fami Abdullah Sankare wala na tadia munya ko nyangani ko kana ko samba onya inya kasiyatela.
Please repeat what your clerk said to you.
Ila clerk ko e même foi asa inkamba e même foi.
And he told me to ignore him.
Nyina fonya ko nganya kasiyala dron.
But did you actually write to him threatening to arrest him?
Bari foi ya safele banka silande ko na ma bula ibe kango dila pour ya muta.
I wrote the letter, but it was me, but I didn't give him the letter.
Nga letero nyin safele de barbitu manna silota pour ka letero nyin futandi afango bulom.
Okay, you never delivered the letter.
Ina ma letero nying nana ma manna futama.
Yeah.
Letero manna futama.
It would have been quite interesting to see how things turn out if you had done so.
Niyo ke nun kol nyim abina findila ni nyame nun teno nyabo be warla nun.
Yes, it's crazy.
All right. Thank you very much for some of those examples on judicial interference in your work whilst you were at the CRR. Can you perhaps tell us what your views are on interference with the judiciary or interference with the work of magistrates? I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Inu barabage ila o senandiro to tumala menna ya kul lata nyonya. Sa info isa fono itela mira loro. Kul katara lani nu nyadi le dabulo men kai dabulo men ke kitiol tamandiri nyato wato men na ibe nu kitin imunun kiti tailati janjambura tundo ka memo makati tundo kandi wo wato la.
Throughout this theme on the justice sector, we've been talking through various witnesses about independence of the judiciary and the important principles underpinning that.
Na insio nyimbe kono be kitio la fanna men jube kanteng diamol finde da wolem kiti bunda nyin taramfambulo nyin aning de tol me yalon ko wolle kadunga koto o watol nyin kono.
Perhaps through your experience as a magistrate, you can tell us a little bit just about the importance of that principle on judicial independence and how interference from the executive or other sectors undermine that particular principle.
Asikeno ila londo rete munajmenje woto wolem kiti bunda nyin ala fanna nyin ala taramfambulo aning de rodol me alon ko le ga findije dundunje dabulo men ka keje me alon ko kabo santo de wolem executive wolem ya jame na la bala moldi ke dabulo men ke ko nyin go kiti nyin tamandiri nyato no wato la itata londo to yemel lonje iso fonye.
I mean, the courts are usually generally the last bastion of hope for people, especially the weak and the vulnerable.
Mawoto Mwede, can you please repeat that line again?
Yes, I said courts are the hope, last hope for people, especially the weak and the vulnerable, the powerless people.
Kadu wo bundale mbundat me yalonko. Jikin na bundale mpuru molu meni yalonko. Imang kango soto be kango londele nyamen aning sembe fanantela meni yalonko. Sembo doyata ila lodulalu mambambang. Amunta wolulajiko bunda amunta itele ke singolo wole kang.
It should protect the rights of people, especially for me, particularly the minority and the weak, the vulnerable. These are the type of group that need protection.
Inyanta mole mako ila ke kanta ke tankandi meni yalonko. Iketa semben tangol leti meno fanalu man kango soto ila lodulalu to. Itenyanta makoiro dila wolle la nyin kamala ni sulata ye makoi ke londisilo kan ke kanta ke tankandi man toro lumameni alonko wolle si batandi.
I mean, if not, it's just gonna be the jungle, the survival of the fittest. Whoever can feed on the other. If there's no regulation,
Na manke wonya.
what they want to do.
Na manke wonya bina kela wula kono luale tide meye menno ye okunum. Yo adu ninga natana lwa wale nyama wobe kela kuliti meye alon kabekeja uyala bakele.
So, allowing interference, usually it's the powerful people who try to influence the courts.
Ni ajube jama nyin dabulo kito lukono bake sembe malu mene kangosoto wole kalafi ke dabula kito luto pour ke yele mandika ay ke nyama me yalon ko ite laftala wala nyama.
And if you allow it, it's gonna lead to abuse and people taking advantage of the other.
Adunina ta son wala amunta bitu wala mnyinti ko etel kawo kangole tamandi wo molu kameni yalon ko sembe tela ikala bitu ikana mantoro la wole kan kela nyanto lutinya.
So condoning judicial interference, you're saying, would allow the powerful people in the society to use the courts to oppress those who are weaker.
Amunta ka song dabulo la kitio la tamdiri nyato surtout kabo sembe malto o ko ka me wulu wala mnyiti ko sembe ntangol nying jama kono ika wollel dete.
Exactly.
Kakawale nyama.
And I believe that would also undermine other principles such as not discriminating against others, the impartiality of the court as well.
Amunta wala mnyinti fananko aka dolu fanalu ntora le kato wala mnyinti ko ninkiti bunda man na tilimuta man silota men tilinta ibaje la ko fanankana ke kole adoleti.
Yeah, and fairness too, and even law and order, because if people cannot have justice, they might resort to other means.
Wala mtonyati katu tilimu kangole nyanta lola katu molu mantonya soto iman tilimu soto wota sikeno ifanalie fere do tamandi ifanalu beji kirim ferolu menula.
That's a great point, Mr. Conteh, because if the last bastion of hope, as you've said, has been undermined and compromised, then people will take the law into their own hands.
Mr. Conteh akumayata katu mola jiko labango mudamenti abe semberin tuku mumen na jiko membabulu niyo nata tinya wotode bitunga belua tala fango bulo konolet.
Exactly.
Walem.
Please proceed if you have anything else to say on that particular point.
Tenten natara ye kumado soto be men la fala wakang.
So I believe as a judicial officer, as a magistrate.
Utontela tanyina la ko wairi nte mukiti ndirlalti mbe luani nkito do kole bundala.
You should do your best.
Inyantela kato dango bele kela.
And not less powerful people, the government, the president, those authorities to use the courts to abuse or suppress other people.
Woto wonyanta kela nyame mawala mnyenti. Ite manyana silo dila sembe malula menu beko nying sembe mabalu kata ko president na nyon donyo kotangulu pulio sembota kamantoro la mo kotangulu kameni ya lonko wole keta du malankoluti purka sembota mandi wolukanga ni kela kangota mandi wolukanga manyang kela.
And from what you've said already, I believe you were able to do that very successfully, at least in the CRR.
Comme ya fo nyamenten saende ite mo molti me ya lonko ya fo nyamenten ite o kele annun ya kele sotota satandita wato men na ebe nun munu kidi telati CRR banko kan.
Well, I think I tried.
Nga katalede na mira roto nga mira de nga katalede.
There you go, being modest again.
Kota ke abita amunta ebe fankela moti menketa ye fankanya ndidro.
But considering the challenges at that time and some of the evidence that we have received, I believe that was quite admirable.
Ani kabini ya jibe ko kole ya kol membe nunji anu ye siden rol men dijang mosaje no kule me alongo anya warra.
We have digressed quite a bit, but perhaps let's go back to our plan, which was you were telling us the different courts in which you were posted. From CRR, where did you go to next?
Silang murun koma domande ya fonyela nu ye komando nu ka silang gabri boda CRR tundo kang itata min dole kotenke.
So because of the governor trying to interfere in my work,
Katu governor lafta akadabula ntela do koto.
and I believe he went even to the office of the Chief Justice.
Mlata la ko do dalilo le fanga ya saba tata hanfo fang kata Chief Justice ta office auto.
What did he go and do there?
Tata munelaje Chief Justice la
I
officer.
was reported there.
Tata je pour kante kata kala mi je doron kanto kuyaje.
For doing your job?
In kama lete la do koleke.
Yes.
Ha.
And what was the outcome of that?
Alo bolero nying muna nata na fintoro.
So the Chief Justice called me.
Birio kata Chief Justice yanta fanan kumandile.
Was that Chief Justice Ajim or who was it?
Wala mun ajim tibam fo jumala.
No, he was the Ghanaian lady, Ajina.
Wamugana muso nyineti kafume ajiyamang.
Okay.
Yeah, so she called me and talked to me, but later on she talked. Because me and the governor, we cannot work together, so she thought it was best to move me to Farafenni.
Ayang kumandile na diamuta bare diamonyi mfanan kola anatakolo jube nyaming aynyim mirako ni kota mitanin governor tema nyamin dal nte tenten nola nte kamben nola purka continue do kola nyola bitu ngamira udalilo le ya sabu atenata nte saundi kambondi je kansamba Farafenni.
In relation to your conditions of service, there's a question I wanted to ask you about the availability of courthouses in these regions that you were serving as a traveling magistrate. Did you have courtrooms to sit in?
Kasuji ning bila doko kenyal halo nyama kumala menne mu kidi tela mena ko be santol to siara tundo kam mafang be nyini kala fo kidi bungo le be santol to ba kela kidi lo kenu dame to bang.
It's so interesting.
How is that?
Georgetown,
Janjambure, Georgetown.
we used to sit in the police station.
Nkasi police station ole kono.
Wow.
And at Kausu, Kuntautu, I think, yeah.
Adu-
We used to conduct our sittings in the police station.
Anun kaurni nkunta urfanang je ulubeto nkake wale nyakili munyama kasi police station ol kono nkakito kije.
I hope some of the locals were not confusing the court and the police station. Then in that case, I'm sure they would probably go and report civil matters to the police station.
Bare dam mira rasikeno sandoron kol na signol ni sandon kol ni ite kol ni ite filila ka foko police station no anin kiti bunda ite filila wato do ni koleal so da malte mai kanata ko bole police station warra nyana la kiti mol.
It was so awkward. Sometimes I just feel, but for me, I was like the litigants because my concern was the litigants. So I tried to do my best to clear anybody who has
Aketa wala nyama de aketa kuke baloleti bari bitung nte hammobe hakilobe menu kan wolle men ya lonko be kito nyin kono o dalilo le ya sabu kanna kato danke pour kanyin kito lutamandi nyama men se ke mulu fana la da daluti wo kito la karola.
And I do respect the police and I appreciate the work.
Andung police olu fana lu nge bunya ngela do ko fana bunya wala nyama.
I do not let anyone interfere in our work.
Nte fana ndumbuka song moya dabula ntela do ko nyin tamandoto.
But did that give them an opportunity, the police, for example, to interfere in your work since you were sitting in their premises? Did they have an opportunity to say things to you or to consult you when perhaps they would not have had that access, that direct access to you?
Fo oyena na police ol nyinga na ra silo dilal bam puru ke dabu etela do ko nyin kono ban tumala men na ibela ibe muna fankan ila kisan sang wala ibe siri wala ibela kito ke ka wala.
No, I don't that because for me, if I'm from work, I go to home and sleep till the following day. So I was not going. I'm usually
Nte ane nte buka song wala. Mbuka so wala pruitele dabula ntela do koto katu ninte nata ningana do kota mande funga mbandi nkasa isule ya Andu wati jama ante katara suole kono ni mantara do kudla nkatara sinna bungole kono wala na nkatara tenkundi ndula kilingolo.
You've mentioned 2 places where you used to sit in police stations. What about the third area?
Ye dingira fula yo la fojang ilamen diala ko iko kasi ni bela kidio taman le kasi police la dingira la cordal. Bla sabanya min doldi.
It was at the police station. All these venues, places that the court used to sit at the police station.
Abe police station ol leto de o tembo kai wo kitol men ngeke ngawol beke o police station ol leto kasi jele andu man sansangutumo.
Was it inside the police station premises or outside?
Police station kono lembang fo sansan kono lembang fo bandala.
Inside the police station at Janjambule, they have a room in the police station, and Conteh, there's a room, and I did the council, there was a room.
Bunkono katara jele Janjambure bunkono bijele nkasi damin andun kawru fanan a bun façon bijele bunkono bijele nkasi damin andun kuntaru fanan bewo nyale ma bungo bijele nkasi damin konoto.
And after you were posted to Farafenye, was that a permanent post?
Farafenye dung biri samba do ko la je la do ko sawndi je fo je mu dingira no yalan ko be sabati la wolto la do ko ba kala je do ne ba.
So Farafenye too, I was posted to Farafenye and SL.
Farafenye fanan biri sawndi je amanke je da man Farafenye aning SL ya na do ko samba wolleto.
You were still a traveling magistrate.
Ani kabi mum kiti tela de me yalon ko e kata male kabu dingira kata dingira to yela kiti olake.
Yes.
And what were the conditions there like?
Jedum yela kuol al halo belare nyaadi le.
Farafenye was better, at least they had the court.
Farafenye le fisiata katu woto aketa nyanyandi wole kiti bunda sotole.
What about SL?
SL dum?
Yes, and SL also.
Aning SL fanan?
Were you provided with security?
Tanko dum yet modi la ba membe la kuol tanga ifan tankala ba.
Ke kanta.
Did you have an orderly?
I was provided.
Yeah. Makoi wotole.
Were you also able to have a driver for your car?
Moto bonorin la do yo fanan dilal bam puri la moto.
Yes, yeah.
Yo fanan kele.
Very well. So after Farafenye and SL, kindly tell us where you went to next.
Beri bu bota Farafenye aning SL afanya bang yesamba minto la kotanke.
Also, how long did you spend at CRR and then at Farafenye and SL?
Ani han kabi ngamuru ko ma domandi yo wati jellel ke do ko la CRR memu janjambure tundo kandi aning Farafenye aning SL.
I believe at CRR it could be about 4 months or so.
Lata la CRR de ngamera sike karnaniti wala dal wo ma fangala.
Then Farafenye too, Farafenye and SL about 3 to 4 months I believe.
Farafenye ning SL fanan lata la ko kabo karisaba kata karnani kandal ngawle ko fananto.
And where did you go to next?
Biringi bora oto idata min dola kotanke.
So when I was at Farafenye, that was when my vehicle broke down.
Birimbe Farafenye wotumole munna moto tinyata.
Then I took judiciary to maintenance it, but it was hard.
Wotumole ngaka ngofutandi kiti bunda banyi mfoma ko isi fere ke moto nyin dada bare anata dukundi.
So I took the vehicle to the mechanic.
Wotumole mundefa fonga nata moto nyinta ngasamba moto dada lalia.
Then at that time I said to myself, since SL is kind of closer, because I live at Serakunda, Dipakunda.
Bari nata jako SL woto katata. Wotumole munata fero ke puruka ajibe fonsina sa uno kasi Serakunda dame mudipakundati.
So I told myself, maybe it would be better for me to, because I don't want to stay like that. So I want to travel to SL.
Waire kolu be wala nyama mala fi ngatara wotara nyama ndum bekar la tamala le kata esew.
So I was traveling from Bikunda to SO every day.
Utumole mbirin sa unta dipakunda nkata male luwolung kabodi pakunda kata kitola esew.
And what kind of transportation were you using?
Ike muna fanu moto muntamaran sifalla.
Sometimes I would have somebody to drop me to Banjul.
Tumodolun simo nyini membe nsambala kanjindi Banjul.
Sometimes I would have to use the public transport.
Tumodolu ngabula jama motol la wala mnyin taxi olti pasas motolu.
So I made sure that I get up very early around 5 a.m.
Bitung wodoko ayasa bule nkabuli juna le tala lulu suba nkabuli otembole.
I made sure that if I'm using the public transport, at 6 o'clock I'm in the vehicle.
Andu natara misal kama ngaja ko wolumbe tamala pasas motol la tala woro wakatar lembe motoko no mbitaka.
Then 7 o'clock I'll be up in the ferry at Banjul.
Tala woro wula puru saje wo jama wakatar lembe banyunu ferry woto puru kate.
Then by 8 o'clock I'm usually at SL at the court.
Ibajala ko bitu jama talan say wakatar lemfutata kiti bunda la esew.
So in such a dignified position as a magistrate, I mean, you would get on public transportation to actually go to work. I mean, how did that make you feel? And how did that also, I mean, how do you think the government viewed you as a magistrate and the important work that you were doing? Do you think that it was valuable to them?
Service you were rendering. Tumala menete mu kiti telalti. Ikana na bula. Jamala moro kono ini jamala kata bula moro kono ikata itela mira loro be nyaade o ku maslango be nyaadi le itela mira loro masakunda itela do ko nyi ya muta nyaadi le itela kuro fo ya mire ya ela ku do ko nyi ya kuma yandi la ba ika do ko men.
For me it was service to my people.
Ndele ndenga jele ko mbedo ko ke kanna molle.
So as far as I'm doing the right thing, especially the communities there are the weak and the poor and the vulnerable.
Andu ni ajibe otumo ko nteka do ko ke molumeni molle men ya lonko bulome ko ben semben tangol le muti andu molle men fen tangoluti o dalilo le ya sabu ndefana nganyim makin ngaje ko mbatna lo nyilie.
Do you believe the government valued your work?
No, not at all.
Hani imanado ko kumayandi otumo.
So there was nothing to really motivate you apart from the fact that you, in your view, were serving the people and you were doing it for them.
Amunda kuteje me ya longo yole ke membe de fanan sawarin le tela miro membe de bulro wala nyindiko meddo ko men ke kan ba ke kan na molle.
Zero motivation, and that's one of the things that angered me.
Otumo ko kullum bukake mensi hammo dundinte kono purunga nyimmakin na wakilin na do ko la karola wo fawna ta ke kuti me yalon kana tan kamfa bak.
Because despite all that I was doing,
katuniaji be otumo ntebe kato membe ke kanun.
When the Justice Ajima was terminated, our services were terminated.
Bring Chief Justice Ajamang la do ko nyim biri ala do ko kumfa ya da handi do ko la.
Then the Pakistani Chief Justice Chauhan came.
Utumolem monata Chief Justice ya makamo ta me ya lonko Pakistan banku dingolem.
Can you just shed a bit of light on the termination of the previous Chief Justice, Ajimang?
Hangabi, nyin Chief Justice member nunje yemena do ko kumva ka me Ajimang. Ala bayro nyin fo isa je kono fanu nunye no do mandimba.
Just briefly highlighting the issues of or the principle of judicial independence and interference. Did it have anything to do with that?
Fo comme misal fe wala ndabulo men ka ke kiti bunda nyina kutamandri nyaato jeng fo ay kusoro ba menni ani me alon ko anu bisujiri ndaba.
I believe it did because she's a very strong lady.
Ngalonko wodabi jele katu atemu moleti me yalonko musolo nyawnyandi bari musubambandi mba.
And that do you mean she was independent in the work that she did?
Alaw koto ilo koto mende wala midiko mole matme ya lonko akatara lori nga faye na bala dugo kela buko suji mola.
Yes, and especially I see how to protect me from the government.
Anu ha bewole nyama sako ate la lodu lato nteni governor tema tenata kemuti puru kan tang katara ning governor tema nyin kamala wo nkana mantu rasutoje.
Do you know how she was dismissed, the circumstances surrounding that?
Yala ne ya bay nyadi le kul belari nyadi le ya bay nyamemba.
I think at that time I was traveling, so I heard as services were terminated and you see when something happens and she didn't feel safe, so she had to leave the country.
Mbe tama ndio wairi nteka tama le kito la karola ngamira mbe utamo le kan nata moiko ya la doko londile ya dafanyondi doko lale abe doko mena nu.
Thank you. You were telling us about after she left, the Chief Justice, the new Chief Justice was appointed. Can you tell us who that was?
Even barabake itarta ka fonyo no mbiri yeng ajimang ya dahande ala dogo la inara na kitite da nyaron ko do tombong ika me
The Chief Justice
kuto mendomo kuma fonya la kuoro bang.
The new Chief Justice, or the incoming Chief Justice, was Ali Nawaz Chauhan from Pakistan.
Chief Justice Kutome yata ikafole Ali Naha Chauhan wala bota Pakistan bank wakang.
And so my first encounter with him
Nala bem follow
was when he came.
wala mbiranata.
At that time, my vehicle had a problem.
Otembo na moto ello soto.
So I was, as I told you, I was going to SL. Going to SL.
Andu watu le mbita kankata kito luke SL. Kabufsera kunda kata SL.
Interestingly, I don't know, someone told him that I was not going to work.
Yo, najube kuolu lalanya kama modona ata ufoa ate enko konte bukata ado kuola.
So I was summoned to the office of the Chief Justice.
Bitu otumole na tankumandi katandanku purunga tandanku of Chief Justice la office oto.
To explain why I wasn't going to work.
Purunga ta sata muna nante bukata ado kuola.
I mean, to me, that is an insult because I've been, despite all this sacrifice, I was getting up early in the morning to transportation. I just trying to do this work, and I was sitting in SL. My clerks and everybody knew that I was sitting in SL.
Unte kumofede wo ketante fele ko nendirolem. Katundenga kato membeke moto tembulu na moto ello soto bari wanyawnyanding nka wakili nka kata nkata purkata kito luta adu nka kito luta daming ese onka si daming ndam man kun kilimute na kla ko lu bijenu do ku nyolu bijeni men yalon ko ni wala kasi kito lu kunaje woto nitel kana muri ko kuma façon lu fo womu kusayin womu ntefe sayin ko mabaleti.
So I was really furious.
Woto briwo kuma fotanya ketanya kamfa baleti.
And I explained.
Between nata sataye.
And he asked the master to go and check my files in essay if I were to prove that I was sitting there.
Wotumolang anatanyin kangodi master of the court pruweta esewu katanyin kuo kisi foto nyato nyanteka si kito lula jele pru aeta o file lujube nka kito ke file lumenula.
Who are you referring to as the master?
Jumala munu master ti.
The master was the late Magisterial.
Master movement inu wotumo wole mtala Magisterial.
And what was his role?
Mune madela do goti ate master nying.
I believe he's the supervisor of the subordinate courts.
Na lon ko tumo atele ka ya maroke bo kiti bunda la kulu la tamanyala.
And am I correct that his the full title was the Master and Registrar of the High Court?
O metilin nela banka foko moli ya makamo men dia la to men dia ole master and registrar of the High Court.
Yes.
Ha walam.
Okay, please proceed.
Tenden.
So the master went and he confirmed that I was sitting at SL.
Birim master nyin tata je check atata la kutonya to nyamka kito lukele nkasile SL.
So that was the moment my relationship with the Chief Justice started, because he had respect for me.
Utembolem nakole akol damra kadun nin Chief Justice tema ko atanata kulu tamandi nya fasongo memma.
So he asked me, he attacked me to his office.
Anataka takante katandi kanakindi ala ofisola.
And he was assigning me some work, research work to do for him.
Andu otumo akadokolu dinna prunga kisikisiru dokolu ke ateye.
And what particular position were you actually appointed to in his office?
Ala ofiso kono je yeto mong ye mum palasi le dila o wato la jeto.
I was still a magistrate, but he had a program, I believe was the codification of customary law in Gambia.
Mu magistrate leti de hanimbide. Yo bari bitum fanang katukungulu sem iti nyalula otumo la wole kono.
So you were a magistrate, but in your cases, or you were not presiding over cases?
Iti tela de bari mu molde mi alon ko ibuka si la dia mol nye yela moy la kesol yela moy ye kidi.
Instead, you were doing research work for the Chief Justice.
Bari amunta inata na as Chief Justice walam kidi la bela nyaton ko na ina bal no ikado ko kai ka kiskisiro kai al office kono.
Yes.
Do you know if this was the first of its kind in the judiciary, this particular role that he had carved out for magistrates?
Fo yalo na nyinam do ku follow de bang a même findindi pour magistrate le nyi do ku sival ka kai.
Yes, yeah. I believe it was the first of its kind.
Nata ko nyum manka foloti.
And what was the nature of your work at the time?
Anu ila do go nyinga be sujini mu fanna jumal la wato la.
So he would give me research work, particularly
aka kisikisir do ko le dinna ka ajube
about customary law, because he wanted to codify customary laws in the Gambia.
Amunta kadu ko men dina ulem nyinti ko Gambia banko na ada kiti silolu na ada kiti ndirinyalu puru nyin kamala nsi tukumulu londi wulu fanalu to puru itamandi nyalu to utumu ayo do ko le dinna.
How long did that particular... Sorry. Please go ahead, sorry.
Tenden.
And also he started the Judicial Training Institute.
Andong atelefona nata kemoti meye yo ketindir bundalo karandiro nindiro damuta bundal.
Did you say Judicial Training Institute?
Fay ko walam kidiri bundal nyina karandir bunda karango karabunda nying.
For the training of magistrates and judges.
Pruka ketindir lalu ning kitite lalu fanalu karandi.
What was your impression of Chief Justice Chauhan? Was he an independent Chief Justice? Or was he one that was amenable to interferences like some of the others we've heard here in the TRRC?
No wetela korosir lati Chief Chauhan la tamandiri nyato fo mole matme alango abelori nga fayende makala kul ka fayende bang fo ila miralo mole matme alonko ke dabula la kul kono mesel ka kumol bula da kono la be men fera be men kala la tamandiri nyato do ko.
I believe he's independent, but the environment was not just right for him.
Latala ko akala kolu tamandi nyamin aba fango bulule aka fango la kangole tamandi bari bitun kolu be a jenjengo la nyamin kolu be laring a fe nyamin dal a manke kuti me yalon ko yati fango fasa bake.
And although we are not going to go into that now, you will tell us later that he actually was dismissed by the government or by the head of state.
Nyara do mande be fola nyele to nyala nyala ba ngoni inata na baile masakunda na baile mbelu njang.
Ha.
So how long did you work in that role, and what did you do after that?
Silang yedo ko ke palace o nyinto même chief justice la office o nyinto andung inata na muneke kotange.
So I was there about 3 to 4 months.
Mbije bare atata
Then I was
ntata fo kabo kata karisa wakari nani kang.
Then I was again moved to anything.
Utumolem kota ke inata mbondi woto yen samba kanifing.
After
Then from
Canifing,
Canifing, then he wanted me to be at Banjul.
Bitum brimbota kanifing ate lafta nun puru ngata numbanyu nu puru katante woto puru katadu kola woto.
how long were you at Canifing?
Tarra Canifing kiti bundar fo wati yelu.
I mean, it was about that time, I believe, for 4 or 5 months there.
Ngamera woto abektala karna ne fota karlulu nyonka ngawle wuche oke woto.
And how long did you stay in Banjul Magistrates Court?
Banjul kiti bunda ndi ngodung ye itarra jefana fo wati yelu.
I started to Banjul, I believe it was in November
Yen so
14th.
ngamera yen samba banjunu November karo atiltani nani mafonga.
Then until my services were terminated on May 4th verbally.
Mbe wala to nun hanfo wato men inatante da handi do ko fa mume wala.
Kindly tell us.
Officially,
Please go ahead.
officially, May 12th.
Bare akangona ata finti me karo tiltang anim fulole.
So you were working with the judiciary as a magistrate for how long in total?
Amunta be niya be yirka itarta do kola kiti bunda nyinto fo wati yelu ini ibe mu kiti ndirlade.
About 2 years, 11 months.
Bitafo sanji fula karta ninkiling.
Almost 3 years.
Mbida wala moya safo don sanji zaba. Abina wasila.
Kindly tell us the circumstances surrounding your dismissal.
Silang ila bayre nyanying afanya bang kol me alon ko wala be murling sujuri nga ila bayro nying kunyala.
I believe my services were terminated because of that case I handled.
Lata la ko yen mbaydo ko la dalilo men kan wala mo ngakiti dole ta nga tamandi nyama.
Which was the case of State Matijao and the State versus State Matijao.
Ngamira wala mkito te me yalon ko mansa anin State Matijao dunta nyola tumome.
Give us some background into that case. Who was State Matijao and the context of that case?
Fondo mango dinna o case nyindo bang atata nyame anu jumala mi State Matijao.
State Matijao was a university lecturer.
State Matijao mo karandiri laleti nung ataka karandiro ke nung university waleto.
They wanted to conduct research on Gallup poll study.
What study? Sorry.
Gallup.
Gallup poll study. Gallup.
Amunda ite lafta kisi role kela nung wo ka memfoten Gallup son lafta kisi role kela wole kuoto nung.
Do you know what Gallup polls were?
Yala na muna nying Gallup polls ti.
I believe, it's they gather information and conduct polls on, for instance, rule of law, governance, democracy, and they gather data and look for people's opinion about issues.
Womu kuleti me yalon ko e ka denne ye do ko ke ka kisikisiro ke ka molu ngani yolu jube ka jube molla hammo ni la lafinna kolu mu muneti isi si ya jube fanan pour ka kolu kisikisi molu la lafinna dalu molu la jerolu isi molu fanalu kacandi ka molu nyininka ila hammolu mu muneti fanan kolu to mararo ana nyon kotengol.
They were doing some research on governance issues around the country.
Amunta ebenun kisikisiro la ke kanung maralo Kenya la bango kanjang.
Yes.
Ha.
Okay, please go ahead.
And then?
So I believe they conducted some training, for researchers that people they could use to conduct the research.
Namira inata karandiro fanankele kamodolu karandi me ya lonko wolle fanalu bina duko kela purka kisikisiro ke itolie ila duko nyintama ndinyaka.
And prepared questionnaires.
Anim fanang ika nyininkarolu parendi nyanta nyininkar façon lu men kela purka wolu nyala tombong.
So they were on. It was during that time then the government and NIA they knew about their activities.
Namira wotembolem man sakunda nata kolu jibe ining enai eulu la kolu lanya.
Because maybe they were suspicious about them collecting certain information or data.
Namira subok
I believe.
Sobo keta nyine la ko ul fanal be kibarol wala ka kibarol le kensum wala ka kolu jibe dalete la sula kolu mentri pour ka kibarol ka funyoma.
And was that because some of the information they were collecting was surrounding the human rights situation of the country, rule of law, and these were considered, I believe, to be sensitive matters?
Oh, ko menti wala nyindi ko so bitala nyinda la ko nyuni be kisikisiro men ke gan wala nyindi ko dol be sujiri nding hada madi nyanto la ko la ani maral kendo andum kulle to mi alla te mi alon ko e ko ni ko be no masata bala akamane ba kane ba.
Yes, because the government at that time they don't. Maybe they were suspicious about things like that.
Ha o tembo de man sakunda be tembo men to tumo e kataria sobila le ku fasongol to ni ye momondi mbe do ku fasongol la e katara ete ka sobite mari la do ko la le.
Please repeat your answer. Your response and the interpreter were overlapping, please. Thank you.
Burungang ila jabiro nyinna ba.
Yes, I believe at that time the government would be suspicious of any information that has to do with human rights, good governance, rule of law.
Ngalong o tembo man sakunda ka sobile ko kundi natilinta kolu la menu beko maralo banko kang hadama ya nyanto demokrasi ani o ku fasongolu momondi yolu maitel katara sobiri ngo molu lale.
And do you know why that was the case?
Yala ne mone sababu.
They believe that that could save the opinion of the people about the government.
Amunda wala nyinti don kam molu wobe molla ngani yole yitandila yengani ya façon men sota ni ye jeri façon men soto man sakunda nyi na karola.
Because it would expose those violations.
Kadwa bina wo wanyaro le natila ikaw nyanta tinyalu menu ke ka kuruyalu men ke molla amunda ulbe wanyarle
Which they did not want exposed.
Andu ngi tol mala fi way wanyar.
I believe, for instance, questions like if the president is a dictator, are people free to express themselves, or things like that. So, and the president will want that.
Yeah, ngalong koko wairi ka foko president mu sembela mara atemu abe sembela mara rolla kolu men betilina wala molla nyinin karol ni molla jero wo ku façon la karola wo abukabu nyema.
And were those actual questions that Said Matijao and his group posed to members of the public whether or not the president was a dictator.
For said Matijao and Adronio little Ninkar Sifa like all del Findin Jama Kambang for Ka Munika for Ya Jam President on Yimu Multimealonco, Sambela Maralo Akawalekaba, Ninkar Siva.
I cannot remember clearly the text, but I believe sections like that were something like that.
Hakilo tabe mutanola da sene mabari lata la koy wo nyinin kari fasongolu wolle tarta kumolu kono wolle fango nyin ko be sabu.
Well, it is not a surprise that he was arrested then. All right, please proceed.
Tenden.
So, I mean, they were arrested and charged.
Inata ulu mutale ye tumi.
And the case was assigned to me.
Bitung inata wo kito dintelela.
What were they charged with?
Ye mun tumi receiver la dengi kang.
I mean, the charges were 4 counts.
Ila tumiro lu mumfe?
Tumiro nani lam?
Tumir nani?
4 counts.
Tumir nani?
So I believe count 1 was.
Mulata la ko tumir following.
Are you reading from a particular document?
Yes, because I still have the ruling.
Katu hanimbi wo kaitol bembulle.
So you're reading from your ruling at the time?
Munda yeki yeku nyim kundu nyame han kabi iba wala karanka iba karanka o kaitole bala.
Yes, yes.
Please proceed.
Akwetente.
Count 1 conspiracy to commit a misdemeanor.
Tumir follow munyineti wala mnyinti amunta kuke bali keudal.
Contrary to section 369 of the Criminal Procedure Code.
Me alonko anina fanna kemesaba taworo nin kononto njang manta nyola na kiti bundala.
Captain voluntary laws of the Gambia.
Me alonko abe na Gambia la loi buko la bunda tanjang kono.
And that's 2002.
Tumir fulanjango.
Failure to register a business contrary to section 44 of Single Windows Business Registration Act 2013.
Amunta ka safar bunda asafe balia safar bunda nyanda safe la bari ala safer balia me yalon ko fanang ninna wo bankola lua sarto lumanta nyola.
Country disobedience of statutory duty contrary to section 115 of the Criminal Procedure Code.
Sabanjang wala nyinti kabalang ila luko tamandila anyama me yalon ko fananin bunda keme bunda tang anin sabanjang nyin walita.
And confirm disobedience of statutory duty contrary to section 155 of the Criminal Code.
Tumirnani njang wal fanamu nyineti ko mela luko tamandi anyama inyanta luko menkela imake anyama me yalon ko fananin na ulwa bunda walita le.
Can you repeat count 1 for me without citing the law under which they were charged?
Akoe tumir bunda follow satae satara hani ima afanna nyimfo.
Count 1, conspiracy to commit a misdemeanor.
Wala mnyindi ka kambeng puruka kruya ko
That's
tamandi.
fine.
Akabeteata.
I hope you'll make these your ruling available to us later on for the benefit of the commissioners.
Na mira inata wo kulu lanya nyimbo kaito nying ibe fere kilale ka futandi manyatonto puru komisional la jero kama.
Yes.
What happened after they were arraigned before your court?
Mule nata kebri nata ululondi nyati lungula kiti bundala.
When they were arraigned,
Briye nata ke kitin purke kitindi.
they didn't have lawyers.
Lawyer te ulubulu iman lawyer soto.
So I stood down the case
Bitum nata kito nyi landi.
for them to go and find lawyers.
Puru nyin kamala isita lawyer lu nyining ifaye wotumo.
Then after I stood down the case,
Biringa kito nyi londi wanya purieta loya nyini ngula.
I was in my chambers.
Mbelna office okono.
Then I received a call from the master of the High Court.
Utumole nata kumandiro soto. Master member High Court ayenkili.
So
Who was the master? Sorry, Mr. Conteh. Who was the master at that time? Was it still Mr. Bubajao?
Akojumale master tinu utumo kiti bunda nyina for Mr. Bubajao lem hani bibang.
yes, it was Mr. Bubajao.
Ha te Mr. Bubajao lem.
Thank you. And this is the late Bubajao who later became a judge, right?
Ngamera wolem tala Bubajao timenna take kiti ndirlati.
Yes.
Ha.
Okay, please proceed.
Akoitente.
So he was talking to me about bail.
Bitunga be nyine fo kanye nunko bel nyanta kila nyameng.
No, so I don't understand because I suspected.
Ma fahamu. Katu anata sobo dundi insondo mokono.
I don't know why would Master call to talk about bail.
Malo muna na master bedia mala hani fo kata bel kumofo.
So usually the master would not call to talk to a magistrate about bail.
Kadu amandali kila puru master ye magistrate kumandi puru ye diamu bel kuala.
So it was then I sensed that the government, the state, the president had an interest in this matter.
Utumolom sobona tadun sondo mokono kamira ko. Uto nyimu kitileti wala nyimu kuleti me yalon ko president amunta nyatili nya sotole nyin kitola karola.
Can you tell us what specifically was said about bail by the master?
Foi sa fono nye mune fam for the master men for bail la kuro nyin kisto.
He said that the CJs told him that the bail is at the discretion of the court.
Ate nyina foko utumo CJ nyina fayen ko bel ko wotuta larin kiti bunda nyin nebulu.
But that was something that you already knew. I mean, why would he tell you that?
But it wo mu kula de me alan ko ete o lonne. Sa muna jere da la prate o foe.
Exactly, and I don't even know how the office of the Chief Justice knew about this case. I know it's the office of the Chief Justice in suit, but I mean things like that.
Bangalong ko abngo lonne bari bitun silang nata mira anya keta nyadi la nfo Chief Justice la office obina bola nyin kolu kala ma belarin te nyami.
Did you see this as an indirect interference in your duties, or perhaps more direct?
O ila mira lo nyi mu kula de me alan ko dablo la me alan ko imasam be ifan kan kai fang bari ya samba ni nyala me alan ko dablo la akonyin kon.
More direct, it was more direct because the court knows that the bail is at the discretion of the court. But
Abolem aka amunta ya tilindi wala nyama ya samba wala nyama kadu ya lonko bel ko o katar larin kito la nyale bulu kiti bundala.
Did that put you under pressure at all?
Fo na de nebula de tola kono bang fo.
of course, yes, it did, because if you call a magistrate and you start to talk about bail, definitely, you would sense that maybe this is just not a normal case.
Abeka oketa wala nyama kadu je ni ya magistrate kumandi me ya lanka be kiti tamandi kan ekana bel kumo kachawe woto abe nyinjila ko nyimu kuleti me ya lonko da bulole mnyinti te lafta jela nyado nyalama.
So what happened after that?
Munana na ke okola.
So it was then I sensed, the government has some interest in this matter.
Otumole nata nyimira ko otomno na mansa kunda fa hammo be kutole nyinkito kono.
So I had to advise myself,
Ngamfa ya mari
and considering the fact that
andu ngani njube ko
two of those, the three accused persons
nyimmo sabolu men yetu miteng
were non-Gambian.
Nil dodo manke Gambian kati.
So, I mean, you know, considering bail,
Dunia jube purka bel ko mira.
there are other factors to consider.
Adun kuko tangulu fanal bijele nyanta menu jibela si mira menula.
But I believe the two most important are the
Barillata la ko kukuma fulo menu be ko kono.
the seriousness of the offense,
Amunta tonyandiro menketa ala sangaro be lari nyadile.
and if whether the accused persons are 5 weeks.
Fodun ya menu tu mitem fana molle men ya lonko ya konyi natot futandile.
And I experienced a situation that happened in the judicial.
Andu nataje ku mukule time ya lonko aketale na kitindir bunda la judiciary konoje.
A senior magistrate,
Kitindir la nyato ngasotonta.
I believe he had a case
Na lonko kule babo lunum kitile belara bulo kono
where the accused person had escaped from the jurisdiction.
Andu moment tumita yemen tumi o kito nyinkono wo mari natak bori ay bankobula.
So the magistrate was in trial.
Bitu nyim kitindir la nyim memba ko nyinkuna inata silandir kolu sambakan.
Are you in a position to tell us who this particular senior magistrate was?
Be parere ne bang kanyin kiti tela nyina atofanya bang. Numala muni mariti no.
I don't want to name names because maybe they might not like me naming the names.
Mala fitolu fola kadra sekeno ko mariolo fa sekela kuti mensi dieye pruntenga na murumbe tolu fola.
And we respect that, but can you provide the name afterwards to us in private?
Okay.
Ngai ngau ilo kuma ka onyi bunya la bari faisi la hido dino la bang be o kola faisa to nyen kino nyendan ne ba ndamalu.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Inumbara tente.
So I remember when I was Badu and me at the principal magistrate.
Yo otumo ntarsa numba nyunle
Would usually pass by anything.
andu jama magistrate ni ngakatambi ni nkani finna.
And to show solidarity to this magistrate because he has been threatening that he must produce the accused person or he would deal with.
Pro ka itande nyi magistrate fana nako mba mbelori nga fele ka fasa katu ye silandir kumo fa yanko nyi memborta teng ay fereke ay mari fintindi.
And so I experienced that. Then I thought to myself,
So tumo le ngamiram fa ko
if these two of these non-Gambians, if they happen to, abstain,
nata mira ko nyi mo fulolu men yalon ko etelu manke Gambia dingluti ninyi linata bori dum
I could face similar fate.
mfanambe dunna o mantora kilimule kono.
So I reminded them
Moto dalilu le ya sabu nge sambari man
to think over my decision before I deny or grant bail.
puru nge sambari man puru nyin kamala mbe wato men soto lan simira fodum nsinyi bel kango di nyili labang fodum kana so yebel.
So what did you end up doing?
Nyala ba ina na muneke.
And I decided that I was not going to deny them bail.
Yo otumo le nata mira konko oto nyili manyane balila purke bel.
But the bail would be in such a condition that they would be reasonable, that they would stand trial, and at the end of the trial, there's no case, let them go.
Yo bitu nata fuko mbebel façon men dilela abekela nyale manyame ya lonko ibe tentena le purka lo kito nyati limula isaje nin kito nyin keta hanfo anata bang utumolem nsina feroji be nin ye fanso to nsebula.
And then I granted them bail.
Utumolem nata bail dealer.
I mean, it was in the amount of 5 million.
Andu ngakango mele kam bail sanko nyin dalasi million lulu.
And there was a lot of, talk about that.
Andu amunta diamolu wulindi nunduma.
What kind of talk was there about it?
In social media and other media.
Amunta na nying dunia be kibar bunda nyi kafome social media nin kibar bunda kote ngolo wolle be kumakanu.
And probably they believe he was excessive.
Amunta itilata nyi na kongawo kodo yiriko melawe kang asia batale.
Were you under some pressure to increase the amount of the bail?
Silang foi be detola kono bang puru ka foi ko puru bail sartoni ye sankaya membe sankaya la sartoni puru ka lafa.
Or did you feel the conditions you set were reasonable under the circumstances?
Waranda foi ya jele ko bail sartoni ye menu lande sartal me alon ko e sone ada bakar.
Yeah, my reason was 2 of them were non-Gambians.
Ha ndela dalilo munyineti nunko. Mofulo nyingolu manke Gambia dingoluti.
And if all I wanted was them to stand trial.
Alundela tanu membela nu wala na yellow kito nyati lingula.
But if they escape,
But nini nataka na iborta.
that was gonna be another issue for me, and we have to be subject to some other things there. So I wanted them to stand trial, and I believe the amount it may be excessive to some people, but to me, it was kind of reasonable.
Awdalilo le asabu bitu ngaji benko ha nyilu nyanta fero kila leke ila ko kiti kato ninge bula luntang lu nyilu asekeno wolieta.
But it looks like apart from the normal considerations that you would sort of weigh, the normal principles under the law, you had other principles that you were also looking into, such as your safety, considering the experience you had with that senior magistrate.
Haninkabi niya jube ebe ya pesa ya jube ebe ila sa kasar rol men dila nu niya jube ya pesa haninkabi hakilo fanan tu koma le puri fanan katanko ani misalo men dija wala ila nyaton ko kitin titela nyaton ko do me alon ko adunta akole ya ko kono me alon ko ani la nyibe mulunta ibe ol bera ko nyi ibe jube kan ya pesa ya jube fond.
Exactly, because if I didn't receive that call from the master and kind of put pressure on me, I don't think I would have been granted bail in such a manner.
Ha ngamira na atar numbang mang kumandiro suno nung kabo mastabulo. Anim fanang amunta imang ida bula kunung ko nyin kono. Bitu ko lu bekta mala nu nyaming wala mnyinti dalilo dinna han fonnata feroke ngata manditen nata nyim bel dila.
And thank you so much for admitting that, because definitely there seem to have been some other extraneous influences on that particular decision apart from the law, and I can understand the position that you were in.
Enu baraba kelo senendro ngaw faham le nga jele ko o fanna dol be e fanna men vojanteng wato dingira dol be katara jele me alon ko de to katara jele bari comme ite alandi nyamen den ngenu baraba kelo senendro ran yala nyamen fana.
But in fact, after you went all through that, these two foreigners did not in fact stand trial, did they?
But kabi taro kabi yo simfa da men beta ten nying luntam fulo nying manna na lo kitio nyate non fo ilodal.
But to my surprise,
Aketanye teren kwoti
their lawyer came to me after it was a day or two.
ila lawyer natante kang birin tilikilin wala tilifula tambita.
And told me that the two officers wanted to change their plea.
Wala mnyindi ko nyimo fulo lumenu ye tumiteng amunta itelila ila lodu la ila ftafalin na ila kangonyi.
to change the plea from not guilty to guilty.
Wala mnyindi be falina le kafoko. Lua mantol muta ebe sonnale silanko ha tonya sontale ko lua ya mutale.
So when they were initially arraigned, they pleaded not guilty, and 2 days after they changed their plea from not guilty to guilty.
Amunda lum folo men na yena ti yelonde kiti o nyati lon le men fo men jabi kiti o wala nyindi go to man son tumiro le men le kan bar tilif kilin tilifula ko la law lum folo nyi na sa murna ko silan e be la lord la nyi falina le ka fo ko sai iso ta tumiro nyi na yemen de kan oda.
Yes.
Ha.
What happened? Did you convict and sentence them accordingly?
Muna nata nake fo ita fana nata na luwa tamandi kande bang inata ne busa yaro la bang ko luwa ya ilandi nyame.
So I was shocked because my mind was, I was just gonna let him stand trial. At the end of the trial, they couldn't prove their case and let him go, but they changed their plea.
Nta lafta kito tamandela nunya wale nyama. Barbitum ko kunyi nata kenya menteng. Inata wuli nang purke la kango falen kafoko. Follow to lota ko itelu mansong. Barbitum nyin labang la inata lo kafoko ha sa yi sontale.
So I couldn't do much because I was not really happy with it, but as a judge, as a judicial officer, you have to be independent.
Bitu otumo biro ketalom man ku jama soto mbebe ntamandile je wairi ntebu do kulaleti luani ntilingo do ko bundala fereti je man ku jama soto mbebe ntamandile je.
Then I convicted them.
Udalilo le asabu nge kitindi nga luaye muta.
And find them.
Nga alamano le kang.
I believe it was 50,000 on each count.
Ngamira nimanyina momondi kungo kundala wuli talulu itelinyanta wale jola alamano
$15,000.
wuli tang ani lulu ka amunta tumiri nyanta wale jola.
Yeah, and then they paid and then they left the jurisdiction.
Inata song ye joro ke biri ye joro ke drong utumole botajang itata.
And again, just juxtaposing that against the bail amount, just highlighting against that the bail conditions were obviously very stringent, because in the end you just find them something less than $100,000.
Munda nyala bo nyi hani kabiri ya jube inata na alamano mel le kan ani ye bel roben dira yemen sang bel mel dila nu e ko do mel lande je ko membe momo be bel la membe sankara be men jola adoyata wotela me ye natni alamano da menna adoyata la bi anim bel nyina ido adoyata wala e bawe dumal.
Yes.
Ha.
All right, thank you very much. So what happened to Said Matijao?
Silang Said Matijao dum muna natana ke atela.
So Said on his plea, not guilty.
Mba munta said ate mwole mnyindi ko lua manate muta.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
He said he's not guilty.
Akate akaulua mate muta amansong.
And what happened?
So it went on trial.
So kuonyi nata dunkito kono utumole.
Who was representing the accused persons?
Intumi monyi njumala belore ngate loyala.
There is, at first, I believe it was Ida Drame who was representing them. Ida Drame.
Ngamira Ida Drame. Wale mu kitindirlati mellota itolienu wotembo.
Then I did change counsel and it was Lamin Kamara for Said Matijao.
Bitungo tumo Said Matijao menata lo wale keta Lamin Kamarati.
What about the state?
Banko la karola du njumala belore banko e.
This time the prosecutor was Abdurrahman Ba at that time.
Wotembo mellota man sakunda ya wotembo wale Abdurrahman Ba.
And he was from the state law office.
And abura mansala kitiri bunda office o nyina.
Attorney General's chambers, rather.
Yes, but later on, I think he also withdrew and it was Bakar Drame.
Ya ngala keta wala nyama bari ko nyim nata me fam nata faling wala bangola Bubakar Drame wala nata loy.
Mr. Conteh, I would just like to just pause for a moment whilst I confer with Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it's time for the break, but we have about 30 minutes or so to go. If you would prefer us to continue and finish with him and then go on a break, or to take a break and then come back.
Well, considering that it's been up very early in the morning, can you shorten 30 minutes to 15 minutes and we finish up with him? If we can do that, that would be great, rather than
I will try. I'm not too sure if I can make such a promise, but I will try to shorten it.
Please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Conteh?
Sedo.
Yes, Council.
I'm sure you've heard what the chairman has said, so take that into consideration as we proceed.
Okay.
All right, so just summarize the case for us so that we can get somewhere. What happened to Said Mati eventually in the trial?
Nyala ba nyin Said Mati ala kitio nyin kono munana na kala.
So the prosecution, they call their witnesses and then close their case.
Kitindrilalu wala lata ila sedo lukumandi brio lukumandi fol nata utumole nata ila kito kumfa.
Then his lawyer, LS Camara.
Ala lawyer LS Camara.
Apply for notice to answer.
Ay nyine safeko woto atela kiliano wo man kiti soto anyante dankula menna.
Please tell us what that means, especially for the benefit of our lay people.
Akataba yo fatang fansinya bang purun na mol la moir la mealan ko mang fahamu o koto munali wala ala lawyer dundiro kula safer la ka me no case to answer wala mang kuma soda be men dankula menna kitiyor.
So no case, I mean, simply means
well, no case wala mnyindiko bitun kitindri bunda nying wala nyante la kito kumfala woldo katu wala mnyindiko etumi monying woto kitirma kuta caring men nyanta lala te kanga munta kitita te kunto.
If there's no evidence that the court can convict.
Ni sede man soto sede koyo men sa itandiko nyimtumi mo nyanta mutala nyine kampurka sorong.
That's around the defense to open their defense and contradict the evidence.
Ibajala utumole ndio keta bitum menu belorin kitindirla menu belorin tumi moye utumole ngol fanal bina ila kudiamo wulindi la pour ka tumi moñi na kolu fasa ka itandiko nying amunta be tembo bento teng atemang lua la sembetelari ngakanga mang kuke.
So the prosecution basically, sorry, go ahead.
Then it would mean there's no prima facie case, like no strong evidence against the accused person.
But new sede a mankita woto wole mnyintiko belola nyine kanko sede bambandi mansoto no nyintumi mola koluto.
So therefore, the prosecution did not meet the minimum threshold of evidence they were supposed to produce.
Amunta koto munyine de wala mnyindiko kitindirla me yalon ko wolle nyin tumi mo nyin na de kitidula to ka tumi ko tumi rol nyin imam kuma kam bamban ngol soto me yalon ko wala bi wala fo nyin tumi mo nyin memba sabula ko furluwa sa muta.
Yeah, that would want the defense to enter the defense.
Ha wala mkuti memba sabula puru menu belorin tumi mo nyiye ulfanalisi wuli yela kuma wulindi puru itelinyanta nyimari tankandila nyami.
So based on that no case submission, I mean, what ruling did you make?
Kasujini wala kabring tumi mo nyin na lawyer nyi ayo kuma ka nyin dundi wala no case submission edina na ko nyin kundunyadi de.
So if there's no case, I mean, acquit and destroy.
Wala mnyindiko ni bitun kiti mansoto menyanta kela puru ka kula nyinka woto kito nyi utumo le ngabai.
So you agreed with the submission that was made by the defense counsel and you acquitted and discharged them because the prosecution basically did not produce enough evidence to warrant a defense to those charges.
Amunda tumi moni na lawyer nyinga safero men dundi kiti onyin kono ina ta ifara nata na so kuma ka onyin ne ka wala nyindi ko tumi moni menu ya nata tumi menu ya nata kiti onyin nyati no memu bankola karola moldi e man kuma kan sa hayare ngodi kiti onyin nyati no memba sabula ko kuma sa muta no ko to nyato nyanyin tumi moni ya tumi menna asabati ta kanne ifara nata na sabati wala yabula iko luwa ma muta dun kiti ofana yabula.
Yes.
Ha.
So said Matijao was a free man.
Said Matijao na ke mori mi alon ko aba fambulu.
Yeah, he was a free man.
Ha, bitu tembolem anata fansoto yabula, kito yabula.
And according to your statement, all hell broke loose from that point.
Amunda ila kuma kan safero nyindo yeme itandi je wala mindu ko nyimbe na tana katinya.
I am paraphrasing.
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us what happened after you gave that verdict?
Silang faisa fono nye muna natana ke brite ko nyum kuntu wanyama.
Considering the political nature of the case, and the fact that the state had an interest in it.
Andung kome hani ya jube fanang set Matijao la law kiti onyin mansakunda ye sulo soro andung politiko al halo onyin fana belari nu nyamen muna natana.
So I believe I did it on Wednesday, April 29th.
Na miranga kulu ke wolungole April karotili muani kononto kakito kundu.
And after that, I was expecting something was going to happen.
Biro batala ndefama be sobirinko kube kelale.
Why were you expecting that something would happen?
Mune ya sabu defama sobira ko kube kelale.
Because it was obvious that the state, the government, the executive had an interest in the matter.
Kadro tumo ndebe sobirinko mansakunda nyin kata na nyatonko banko kundonko ulube kusotole laftamenta mandila kito nyinto.
But despite your fears, you still went ahead and did the right thing.
Bari hanin kabi nyao nyara de nyama ila silo ko nyin kono nyao nya baina na kuke me alon ko anyanta wala nyama.
Yes.
Walem.
I don't think, somebody decides that he doesn't deserve to be destroyed like that. So,
Amira kwa abekela kuleti menyanta purka said matila kulu tinyanyi wonya bitu dalilo le ya sabu mfana ngata mande wonyama purinyi kamala kakanta katanka ndio mantoroma.
Even at the risk of reprisals to yourself.
Anin kabi honi wonyao nyara nyama maslango be kan nyao nya iya kuntu wonyama.
Yes, I knew maybe the worst I would get is to be fired. So I prefer to be fired than destroy a young man.
Ha, ndafana ngajele ko. Ningata mandi wonya. Ko si kuja wo membe kelantela dron wole mbiye mbaidu kola. Bari ndafana wole fisi atanye yembaidu kola wole fisi atanye. Nga funding kedo jube nga tinya.
That was quite commendable. Seeing as you were also a young man with a future ahead of you, which you were willing to sacrifice for the rights of others.
Tenturubala ikang hani ya jube ete fana molde me alon ko funding ke mera wala muiti bar hani kabi onya ya duno nyimbeta ya woku beje ya taki ya duno nyinta.
Exactly, because he should be protected.
Ha, ayanta kala wala nyama. Mnyanta kantalale, ayanta kanto sotonale.
So what happened after that?
So on Monday, I went to work. I was in court. Then my orderly came. And told me that the principal magistrates wanted to see me urgently.
Afanyon ko magistrate ke ba nyeng o laftan jelale jer saharingula.
Then I went to see him.
Ntataje.
Who was he?
Atala mununjumati o magistrate ke ba nyeng.
Then he's Mamadou SN Diallo. He's not a high court judge.
Mamadou SN Diallo saying high court kiti ndirlale mwati wala muna kiti sandonga bunda nyinti.
Please proceed.
And then
He's told me that the Chief Justice sent an urgent message
ay ñina fanyan ko Chief Justice ye kibar kandile kinang
that I should go home immediately
konte nga say wono to nga say
because he received the order that from the president, that's Yaya Jammeh.
kato ate fana yo kango soto mole bulume yalon ko wole banko president Yaya Jammeh
That I should be dismissed.
ko ñanta mbaylale.
Mr. Conteh, before we move on, did Yaya Jammeh appoint you?
Mr. Conteh be musedo de janni betente na fo Yaya Jammeh atele to tombo mang do ko nyito.
No, Yaya Jammeh didn't appoint me.
Anide Yaya Jammeh manteta do ko la.
So how come he was dismissing you?
To saying abe keno na nyari la tebe bayla.
Well, that was the order given to the Chief Justice.
Kango le nyintime yalon ko Chief Justice wole yo kango dintela.
Okay, very well. I believe somebody did not advise him that he did not have the authority to do so. Who was the Attorney General at the time?
Jumala munu minister member ne lual len kiti ndir kunyala o jamano la.
It was Mama Fatima Singate.
Ikafo Mariole Mama Fatima Singate.
Okay, please go ahead.
Tenten.
Then that I felt threatened.
Aketanya kutime yalon ka aketa silandir kuoleti.
I packed my bag
Nga nafengulu kafunyoma.
without telling anyone anything.
Mam femfem fo moye mam kuma moye.
I boarded a taxi and went home.
Mbulata taxi okono tembole nsaita suokono.
I had to change my location.
Oyo aluwa sabule ntara dula fa nga falin.
And so I was there. It was on the May 4th, then until on the 12th May.
Ya betungo tumo kabrim mekaro til nani fo mekaro til tanim fulo.
Okay, I have to because I believe the Chief Justice. I mean, he said.
Mlata nyina ko to Chief Justice atakata moleti meyen tefanan kanandi.
And I'm so grateful for that.
Andu oketanya kuti nsewo tala kola ko karola back.
Why do you believe he saved you?
Mane asabu ite lara ko Chief Justice nying ayetan kandile.
Because the moment he knew about it,
Katu wato menga botakalama.
he sent a message immediately.
Ay kibaru kinte kanna utumole tarinke.
And initially you told us that the worst that could have happened to you was that you would be dismissed, and you were not really scared of that.
Ariyalan koma ya fa mole no jango ku jaw membe kelela ni ko nyingo no wala nyindi ko ni bay andu imansi o mesula fa imansi la wala.
However, when you got a message from the Chief Justice saying that Yaya Jammeh was going to dismiss you, or he had an order for Yaya Jammeh for your dismissal from Yaya Jammeh, things changed.
Anin kabi o nyaaw nyara ni nyaawa o kuma kan kilo ngai na kabirina na kibaro surat Chief Justice nyimbulo ko Yaya Jammeh ko buru ye bay.
You were now afraid not only of being dismissed, but for your own personal safety. Can you tell us why?
Iman na mda woro ron bayro nyin na ko nyin do bari ina na sila le fanam sayang muna na mune sila nda ko nyin kono.
Yes, because the order was for Yaya Jammeh, and Yaya Jammeh, how long if he's angry with you, then anything could happen to you.
Odumo ngalon ko Yaya Jammeh na kamfatale adu nata atamu moli na kamfate kamma. Bituo de kokundi sikeno ite marilal.
When Yaya Jammeh is angry with you, anything can happen to you.
Yaya Jammeh kamfata momo ninga ko kusikera keno elala.
Things like what?
Membe ko nyumu.
You could be arrested. You could be killed.
Isi mutano andu mfang isi fano.
You could be in prison.
Isi soronno.
And that is why you went into hiding.
Amunda wale asabu itara mabo.
Because you were genuinely scared for your life.
Kadu isila da ile fangola tangola le baluo.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened after that?
Mune na ke okola.
So because the Chief Justice refused to give me my termination letter.
Chief Justice ni balantala pour kanna letter by letter o nyindina.
So it was May 12th, I learned that he too was fired.
Mekaro tiltanim fulole nata nyim fanam fahamu ko yate fanam bayle.
And so, and that was the day my termination letter was written.
Yo bito lungole fanamu yente na bayri letter o nyim fanang safeta kafutamma.
Do you know the reasons behind the dismissal of the Chief Justice?
Ya na dalilo membe dalil ku membe alon ko be maboring waranto membe fudurim dalilo me asabu Chief Justice ni ya bay.
I mean, it might be my case. I've heard things like it was about the case of Lam Tombantamba, but at that time I was not really. No, I couldn't say specifically that was the reason, but I knew for a fact that he refused to give me my termination.
Ha ase keno kudol bijele ko kol men be ko lan tombon tambañol la ko bar bitum même ko dinata so be melna wala nyinti ronga man na song pour kantela bayri letter o dintela.
And even though you didn't know the specific circumstances surrounding his dismissal, you knew that it had to do with a case that he was presiding on, something that had to do with his independence as a judge.
Hanin gabi onya kilo onya rani nyama iko imalo dalilo me asabu ya bay membe asabu ya bay bari iso bida nyinde ko dalilo me asabu ya bay wala minti ko sujiri ndin case la me alon ko ayata aya kiti andung ayo ke kula me nyala me alon ko kulu ala landi wala nyama ko ala do ko nyi nyana kena do ku nyalti me alon ko betar la lorin afaye.
Yes, I believe he was dismissed because of as a result of interference because of a particular case.
Ha ngalo ya bay dalilo men kan wala nyinti ko dablo keta kiti mento me ya lon ko lebe keri no tembo.
And I believe this point is buttressed after he was dismissed, because the person that they brought to replace him was the exact opposite of what he was, according to the evidence which we have received. And who was that person?
Yes, that person was Emmanuel Fagbele.
Ha Omari me ya nati atela palaso to ka fole Emmanuel Fagbenle.
I believe the very day Fagbele took over.
Lata la ko lummem fango Fagbenle e ko luta.
That was the very day my termination letter was written.
Wolum killing le famo yentela bayri letter o safe.
And of course,
So,
I was just going to say, and of course, he came to purge the judiciary of everybody who was an independent judge or magistrate.
Amunta silang wotumo lem yenyin silota purka molu ba momondi ninkitindir lalo meya lonko. Amari la kito alota fayena tata fambulu purka tonya tamandi.
If you don't agree, Mr. Conteh, by all means say so, please.
Ni man som fana Mr. Conteh hanim be afudro.
I agree. I agree totally.
Nsontale fang kendake.
Because they might have started with me. So, and I've learned.
Ha, neju be kolu la nya follow tante fangola.
Yeah, later on dismissed.
Wala, bitu wala na katu ndela bayri letter o waira amadina anu fo kol na taketen. Lata la ko aketa wole nyama.
Please repeat the last part of your answer. I did not get that.
Akoy la jabiro labango ama oto soto saije kan.
Yeah, because after my case, a lot of other magistrates and judges were dismissed.
Ha ntela ko boring wala. Magistrate ni jojo lu jamal le soto ntay labanta menu fanalu bayla.
Can you give just some examples of such magistrates and judges and why they were dismissed? Did it have anything to do with their role?
For esis misali ngolo dinol nale wo magistrate ni o jojolu fodum kule men tata dending la kitolu te nyala bang.
Magistrate Ibrahim Jete, I believe he is now a judge.
Justice Magistrate Ibrahim Jaite sa in jojo le mwate kitindirlale mu.
Was he dismissed because of a decision that he made?
O ya bay dalilo men kan wala nyindi ko ay kan wala taba.
Yes, yes.
Ah,
Who else?
Aninjuma.
And I believe Magistrate Omar Jara was also dismissed.
andu latala ko Justice Magistrate Omar Jallo fanang.
Omar Jaba.
Omar Jabang fana ya bay wo nyale.
And was that because of a decision that he had made during the course of his duties?
Amunda da fana ya bay dalilo men kan wala nyindi ko ala du ko nyi wato nyi kono ay kiti la kundu ni nyala me alon ko amandi ay toli.
Yes.
Ah,
Do you remember Patrick Gomez, who testified here a couple of days ago? Do you remember the circumstances surrounding his dismissal?
Mola me alon ko ay sedan do DJ ka me Patrick Gomez tilden dan ko man don fa yalo na dalilo men sababu da fana na bayo ro la ba.
Yeah, I knew Patrick, but at that time I was not at this judicial. But I've heard that he also had issues with Fabel.
ha banga particular ne bari bitunga tala ko be kala tumo men no yatra mantara judiciary kiti bunda nyinna bari nata nyin lonko fanan ate fanan nim fak ben le ko le du nyote.
Do you know whether he was dismissed because of his decision as a magistrate?
Yala na ban fa ya da fana bay dalilo men kam wala nyindi ko ay kan men tamandi wato men na munu kiti ndir lati ba.
I believe so, yeah.
Ah, nlata wala la de.
Do you have any other examples of people who were dismissed because they did the right thing, made a decision during the course of their judicial functions?
Ay misalo do soro le ba mo do ko tangol soro ba men ya lon ko ila mira lo de yol fana bay kula me ya lon ko be sujiri ni ila do ko le men ke wato men munu kiti ndir lal kiti telal.
Yeah, Jeta, Omar Java, Patrick, Chief Justice Chauhan, and later on, these two judges of the Supreme Court, Justice Janet and Justice Sock, were also removed.
Wala Justice Jane nyolu kata Justice Sok ngamera o dalila kilmule fana ya asabu kan fo inata ulu fana lube bondi.
Okay, thank you.
And Magistrate Jacqueline Nixon Hakim too.
Ani Magistrate Hakim nyolbe yolbe bondi o nyalema.
Okay, and where was Magistrate Hakim presiding over, in which court?
Magistrate Hakim ata be mun kiti bunda bunjumal to no dara kiti o kala kanda men don.
She was a Bantu.
Ngamera utuma be banjul lenu.
Do you know whether she was dismissed or she resigned?
Yala na ban fo ya
Because of
bayle
judicial interference.
yala na ban fo ya bayle ban fo ata fango le fonyo ban ka ko suji nin kula me alon ko dabulo le men ka kala kiti o nya tamandir nyala.
I believe, me and her, we are dismissed on the same day.
Mlata la ko
Official letter.
ntenate ben na kolu muliata nyakilu nyalema men denta letro la me yalon ko asafeta.
Thank you very much for that.
Mbarabake.
You wanted to also give another example of interference
After misalo do fanandila me alon ko be sujiri nin dabulo la kiti o tamandir nyala.
coming from another source apart from the office of the Chief Justice.
Me yalon ko ka bona mfanna do la me
Sorry,
yalon
not the office of the Chief Justice, but the executive.
fanna do me yalon ko ka bona executive wala mi ya jame na la balabul mulla fannati.
Which other source is that?
Yes.
Wala fannati ma de ko ta men ke dabula kiti o tamandir nyaro.
I believe, and I have information that the Attorney General at that time, Mama Fatima Sinate, influenced the decision to get me dismissed.
Ngalata la alunata nyin kibaro fanan soton ko Mama Fatima Singate atelo moti men yalon ko dabulo ke ko nyinto pour ka jako furu sente bay.
Can you tell us how she did this or what your belief is?
Isa fo no nyi ay nyin keno nyaale le warando muna muyte la lannode muna landi ko ay nyin kele.
First, she was the Attorney General.
Follow atelom nung Attorney General.
Her role was to advise the government, the president.
Andu jama atelom ya marlati mansakunda la karola kafo katafo president.
So by law, I don't think the president would dismiss a magistrate or judge without the knowledge of Attorney General.
Woto lata la ko president wote jojo wala magistrate o baila satara ate mambo akalama.
Do you believe that the president would have listened to her if she had given him advice that he didn't want to hear?
Fo ila mira loro ko ning atra yamaro di president wala fo president be kala molti me alon ko abe sonna la yamaro la bang ay men diala bang fata ke.
Yes, because I'll give you an instance, like the case of Jacqueline's case.
Ha abasa kewo nyale mbe misali do fanandile la membe ko Jacqueline la case.
I believe she presided over one of the political cases.
Mlata la ko asita politique kiti ole fanandolu kono kilinkunna.
She freed the accused persons.
Wo menu ye menu tumi okuo kono anata wolu bula ke frita itata.
But she was not dismissed immediately.
But imata bai wo noto de.
And at that point, who was the Attorney General when she ruled or made a decision on those cases?
Atani Jacqueline biling abe in kango kundula nunga taman lanu yim molla koto yim political molla koto jumala munu Attorney General di minister di.
I believe the Attorney General was Justice Mahoney.
Mlata la ko tumo Attorney General Justice Mahoney leti otumo.
And why do you believe she was not dismissed at that time when Justice Mahoney was the acting AG?
Na sabete la mira loro ma bay wo wato la tumala men Justice Mahoney la mun Attorney General me alon ka be karfaring ala la man wo wato.
I believe that was his position, acting Attorney General.
Jikira ngunde abe karfaring ala man ka me acting.
Yes, to me that proves that if the Attorney General does not influence, the president have little, room or even the courage to fire a magistrate.
So ngalo ko Chief Justice natara atemang akonyin fasanu. Woto ngani mira ko tumandolu president fongo ate kidila purkalo ka foko ye nyim bayro ke onyama.
And what about Justice Mahoney made you believe that he did not influence the president in that manner?
Monta Justice Mahoney mune landi nyina ko atemang song o kango nyina ka tamandi o anyama.
Apart from the fact that she wasn't dismissed, obviously.
Ninga boda nyina ko ila lara mena ko ma bay wo wato la.
I believe, Justice Mahoney is an independent-minded person.
Leta la ko Justice Mahoney mu moleti meya fansoto ondung aka lo afang la kangole kang.
Believe that he.
So I don't believe he would try to influence or make the president to do that.
Malala te bela fela purka nyin kangodi wala purka ka president onyanyi ni purka okufasongo lutamani.
And why do you think that Mama Fatima Singate, on the other hand, would do something like that?
Sina mune ya sabu ite la nyina ko Mama Fatima Singate nya karadola ni ajube atabo kulan le wala nyama.
If you look at the tenor of Mama Fatima Singate,
ni Mama Fatima Singate la ucheo jibe ucheo menga be mararo la odinkirato.
So many judges, so many magistrates and judges were removed.
Judge Jama and magistrate Jama nyinkitindiralu Jama le sotonta kono menu bondi.
I believe the former Chief Justice Mabel Ajima was removed when Mama Singate was Attorney General.
Lata la ko Ajeman Chief Justice niya ya bondi wato meng ate Mama Fatima Singate ate long Attorney General ti otumo.
Justice Chauhan too was removed when Mama Singate was Attorney General.
Justice Chauhan fana ya bay wato meng wayata ate Mama Fatima Singate long Attorney General ti.
Justice Raymond Salk and Justice Janet were both removed when Mama Fatima Singate was Attorney General.
Justice Salk ani Justice Flanja Omayafu Ulufanali Yebe by Wati Kilumule Wato me Mama Fatima Singate Bije.
We're losing you a little bit, Mr. Conteh. Just speak more clearly and audibly.
Justice Jane and Justice Sak, two justices of the Supreme Court, were removed when Mama Fatima Singate was appointed.
Justice Sok and Justice Jane, Supreme Court Judge Fula. You'll find by Ateo Wato Lawato, Mama Fatima Singate, Attorney General Yala.
And you don't believe that it was a coincidence that it was during her tenure that these particular people were removed?
And Malala Yamutako, Asikeko, Kol Bentadrong, Wato Men Yenilu Bondije, Natala Wato Benda.
All these cannot be coincidence. Look into order, the tenure of other Attorney General, for instance, Justice Mahon. I'm not aware of any single dismissal during his tenure.
Justice Mahoney la wuce okono. Mambo akala mahani sinya killing kafwe wodoku lalu killing by kitindir lalu. Barni ajibe. Nyimbete keno la kafoko ibentale. Hani katu atela wuce waralo atela maralo wuce okono lem. Nyi kitindir lalu mo jama sotonta imenu bondi.
And Justice Fagbenle, do you know where he was before he became Chief Justice? Do you know what he was doing?
Justice Fakbeli, yala na benu mindole janni bagila Chief Justice.
Justice Fabella, he was at the Court of Appeal.
Justice Fagbenle abenun kiti sa inkambunda lanu.
And before that?
Then,
No.
I believe he worked as a prosecutor before he was appointed a judge.
Namira kitindir lale munu janni ba kala kiti telati nu.
He was the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecution.
Antala munu kitindir la bela nyaton ko de ka me DPP o wado.
Do you know whether he worked during the time that Mama Fatima Singate was the Attorney General at the Ministry of Justice?
Yala na fo wado men na Mama Fatima Singate munu minister member ni lual ni kitindir kunya la fo abe atenyin DP Fakbeli abenu do ko la jeda ba.
I mean, you mean he, whether in Fabella worked with Mama Singata?
Yes, at the Attorney General's chambers. Because both of them were in that department.
Yes. Yeah.
Ha. Akita bunyan.
Are you able to draw a link between those two events?
After isi chokinyolo sabatino ku fulul tema le ba.
Considering the fact that Justice Fagbenle was at the ministry, was at the chief office of the Chief Justice in the judiciary at the same time when Mama Fatima Singate was the Attorney General.
Ni ajibe Fagbeli abenu Chief Justice la office oni to waro mena Mama Fatima Singate abenu minister la memara dual ni kitindri kunyala.
And their history at the Attorney General's chambers.
Andong tare golle me anon ko wolle keta ministry me marlen dualni ki ndir kunyalo kol men tambiraje.
Yes, and I personally knew that when Fabella was acting Chief Justice, Mama Singate would come to his office, the office of the Chief Justice.
Latala wato men Fagbenle be palace nyaton kaya Chief Justice. Mama Fatima Singate kata ala office otole kata futa maje.
So there was a relationship between the two. And where did you get this information from?
Did Chief Justice, was it the day or the following day when Chief Justice Mabel Ajiman was removed?
No, I'm not thinking about some bring Justice Ajiman Bondi.
And at that time, Fagbenle was the acting.
Potembo Palazzo in Becarafarim Fagbenle Lema?
Mama Singate came to his office.
Mama Fatima Singate Natala Office.
I went there to see the Chief Justice. So I saw them, my own eyes.
Ulun Ntefonong Fanan Kunding Tata Jele Purka Chief Justice. Ntata Beng Wole Feje Ntefong Nyaye Mofulo Luje.
Do you know under what circumstances you saw them fraternizing with each other?
Yala na bang yetara alhala nyadi le kono memba sabula yetara alhala nyadi le kono bungonyi kono je brief rata je ofiso kono.
Well, I believe there has some relationship with Conteh and
Lata lako.
I don't think it would be proper for the Attorney General to just, it depends too, but slowly taking into account the circumstances.
It wasn't
Yeah,
an official function. That's what you want to say. It wasn't an official function. They were just together on a very in an informal setting.
Amunta ngeje nyokan dorong. O dalilo le ya sabu. Barbitung nyale fangaye mo fulolu je nyokan andu ngalonko ikanyomwele bitung ila taranyo ila doko sambanya obeda mangoletem.
Yes, it wasn't formal. It wasn't formal.
Ila nyoje o amanke ko nyinti ko doko le ya kaning wala dalila koyole bala luwa ya kaning.
Thank you very much for that.
Numbara ba kela o senandiroto.
Also, you've told us that there were some letters that came from or emanated from the executive.
Yandu ya fo mole fana janko letaro dolbe je mi alon ko bota executive wala mi ya jamena la bala molde mi be katangala.
To be more specific, the office of the president.
Ka sabatin ka tiling ko nyim fanga wala president office or letaro men boraje.
To the judiciary or to the courts. Can you tell us more about that?
Letaro men yalan ko ke safena ka president office or ke kiti bundaro.
Yeah, at that time I witnessed 2 occasions.
Ha, utembo ndefo nata okuo sede ya fosi nyafula fang.
Letters would come from the office of the president,
Leterol kabona president la office oto.
the judiciary to the office of the chief justice,
Leterol kana kitindir bundala kata chief justice la office oto.
and to the courts.
Kata kitindir dinkiraluto.
I mean, the directing that
Kanyin kangodi ko.
certain cases and they will list the name of the cases.
Kitul façon lu men yalon ko etel hammo wala nyabe lori menu kan ikaw kitolu fanglu be safele.
Dispose of within a certain period of time, or else the language is like that.
Ka fo nyin kiti kari iba kala tenne nyin wuce kari kono nionte nyin ninyi ne be kala wo kuma kam façon lu.
Yeah, I personally saw those letters,
Nde fango kuma yo letterol dolu jele.
and the principal magistrate at that time,
Mutumo magisterial utembo.
who is the current attorney general, he would call a meeting.
Mutumo member chief magisterial utuma se bengo kumandi.
Was that Dauda Jallo? You said
Dauda Jallo.
he was the principal magistrate at the time, the attorney general, the present attorney general now.
Olem Dauda Jallo ti mem principal magistrate a telefona mu attorney general ti sai.
Yeah, I mean, so he would call a meeting for us to discuss.
Asi bengo kumandi pour ka si kanyin kolu diam.
And although you didn't mention him, but I believe he was dismissed at some point as well because of a decision that he made during the course of his duties as a magistrate.
Imare to fono de mol la me alon ko ye bay do sujita men wala nyindu ko ye kanwala ta ila do ko nyin kono bara dafa nan jigida ko ya dafa nan bay dalilo men kam wala nyindu ko ay kanwala ta ala kitiyo nyi wicho nyi kono kitiyo kundu ni nyaado la me alon ko amandia e to le ya bay wala la.
Yes, he was also dismissed because of a case.
Ha yate fanam bay wo dalilo le kan kadro ay kitile te nyama memman dolu nyabo.
And I believe the police or the NIA, they came to the office.
Ngalon ko lata ko police wala NIA wul fonglu na telefo kana futa office je.
And they asked him to surrender his passport.
Ina ta fay jele ko ala passport o aya dila.
Then the Chief Justice knew about this,
Bring Chief Justice Boto Kalama.
Who was that?
he protested. He said that
Atela mu jumate no chief
it
justice.
was Justice Chong.
Utumo Justice Johan Lemu Brabota Kalama ala balambaya itandi.
he protested that he was not going to court unless they let him.
Kamfata la balambaya itandikati ta kito bundala hanfode funi yo bulobo kang.
So he stood up for your worship, Dauda Jallow, at the time.
Amunda lota Dauda your worship Dauda Jallow fe o watola.
I believe he did, yeah.
Allah ta'ala ko ayoleke.
Okay, thank you very much.
Numbarabaga.
Can you just tell us briefly what impacts your dismissal from the judiciary, as well as all the experience you've had on the intimidation, harassment, and interferences with magistrate and judges?
First of all, nying kol be ne narna mon kole akule zabu e ba ila bayro nying aning dabulo men ka kila kidio nyin ta mandir nyaro aning ka kuma ka on men fo e kidio nyi wicho nyin kona ay mun ka kole akule zabu ma.
What impact has this had on you?
Jojo ni magistrate or menu be ye bay anu ay mun kole akule zabu ma.
Well, I mean, it's apart from the psychologically, maybe I was stressed. It's kind of stressful.
Ni mirala sondomola karola akake mari de unquality.
And also career-wise too.
Andung ila do ko nyim fanan stamandola karola akake nasidality.
And so for me to, I mean, when I was dismissed, because I was offered scholarship by Jami.
Ndefanan dum bring ye mbay aketa wala nyama badum ya jame fon scholarship dintalale.
But I mean that scholarship was revoked.
But was scholarship in ato baile.
So but
why was the scholarship revoked, Mr. Conteh? I know this is an obvious question.
Mana ya sabu scholarship nying ya bay.
He was not your kind of magistrate. Or you were not his kind of magistrate, rather.
Ita mangala nyar kiti kutula de mealon ko yamala multi.
Yeah, because I thought he said that maybe no, you don't deserve this. So
Ngamira aketa wala nyama de ngala college ro nying amanyin si pour nyin kai.
You were not obeying his orders or directives.
Ibuka songala kangol tamandila ko alaftala nyame.
exactly.
Walem.
Please proceed.
And then?
So fortunately, I was able to find my way out of prison.
Wanata Kenyan Cairo ngasilo nyine hanfo ngasilo sota kabojang.
Then because I was about to come because of this scholarship. I should be coming to University of Oklahoma for my master's program.
Because watembo nyanta silo sota katana masters ke University of Oklahoma pour kata karamalaji.
Yeah, so I was able to have my way.
Between wala nata Kenyan silo ngasilo ta pour kata.
Yeah, and my family, they supported me.
Andun nabadi ngulu nadimbaya lu yemfasa bake.
Yeah.
And I hope that your experience has not put you off judicial office for the rest of your life, and that maybe you'll come back home one day and serve.
Ngamira bitung wo kolu wo jeri kolangulu wo ta kendi la pro ye kodi wo do ko la mankita lo abunda do ko la mbejigirin ko lumbe sila ibe murula nanne yana tenteng do ko la.
Oh well, maybe probably, but for me, because what I went through was very traumatic.
Asike asina tamanya wonya bari bitum fanang kudol fanal bilarin.
Sorry about that, Mr. Conteh.
To sign.
I think I want to pursue my options here.
It's unfortunate that we've lost such a noble judicial officer. And I have come to the end of your testimony. I've come to the end of your testimony now. I will hand you over to the chairman for any questions that they may have to ask.
Chairman, atafango aning commissioner dolu mo me nyinin kar soto ise nyinin ka.
You will also be given an opportunity, if the chairman so wishes, for any final remarks you may have.
Andu be silo dile fananale nim chairman ye asilo nim chairman sonta puru isila kacha kumfa kuma kangulula ite fanan lafta menu banke la jam.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for the opportunity given to me to the whole.
Inumbara bake akatanye sewoti animbunya pur kanyi silo yele nyente fanan pur ngana sede yaro la jang.
Thank you, Council, and thank you, Mr. Conteh, for your testimony.
Inumbara Council, inumbara Mr. Conteh la sede yandiroka.
You've been up for several hours and so early in the state of Washington.
E wulta juna montro wati jamai be nyala e dinkira nyinto ebe damentu teng tundo me ka faje Washington.
Commissioners, if you have any questions, please indicate.
Ning commissionalu fanalu nim moy nyinin kar soto pour ise nyinin ka.
Not if you have any concluding remarks, Mr. Conteh, please proceed to make them now.
Saying ifana woto wairi commissioner man soto men be nyinin kala ifana nakumo kumfaran kachalu sila ngasilo di la ifana siwolu fo.
Thank you, Chairman Sise.
Inumbara bake Chairman Sise.
As I've said,
kunga fonu nyamin
it's been an honor,
ninketanye bunyati
and I'm grateful
akatanye sewoti fanan
for TRC give me the opportunity to be heard.
pro TRC ni silo mendina kana sede aro la jang.
You've been doing a tremendous job.
Albedo ku kende bale ke kambrali adamu takana sayin kan.
It's amazing.
Aketa kuti memfon lafta kela ka kuti.
So, for me, I'm excited about this whole thing.
Nte kungode aketante ye jusula bale te sewo bade.
And it's good for people and the citizens to know.
Abete atele puru molu animbanku dingulu ya lom menketa.
What happened?
Menketa
and how we can grow as a nation.
Aning nsik mune keno puru nga kurukuru kake bankuti komfang lafta la nyaming.
For better.
Me yalonko asike kaira aning yirwa bati bankoe.
Because injustice is threatened justice everywhere.
Katu tilimbalia amut tilingu nintonya tinya leti dunia karawo karala.
For any society to grow,
puru jama sila wo jama ye kurukuru ye meng anyama.
Justice and fairness and equality and respect for the rights of the people is sacrosanct.
Tilingu tonya ka molu kanyandi ka kuolu sahayandi wo mukuleti menkuma yata bake jama fanna wo fannala.
So you've been doing a great job.
Andung aleyedo ku kende bale ke albe menke kanteng fang hanimbi.
And I would appeal for it to continue.
Mbe wasila prunyendo ku kendo ay tenteng.
And we look forward to the recommendations.
Bitumbe jikiring hammo fana sinin mu yamar façon lena bena bola nyin kokono.
And certainly the implementation of the recommendations.
Anim fanan jikoning hammo be lori nyin kanko yamaro lu menu be dila pour wol sike kuti ibe menu londi la ke tamandi keke.
Because I didn't lose a family member.
Katun tamam fo badin na de.
But there are people who lost their family members.
But mo jamal le bijam men yalon ko ibadingulu ifote ibadingulu la.
as a society, I think, we should be concerned.
Moto wairi hadama ya lemu hadama dimu mendelbem hadama dimu letimbe nyokang uta nyanta kela nyede undaleti.
I'm not the type of people who would say, oh, if I'm not concerned, I'm not affected, then I'm not concerned.
Ndemanke moti me ya lon konsafu ko wairi kumanke ndela kumanke na mola woto amanke nyede unkuti ndete manke umofasonti.
So we should all be once anyone's keeper.
Mfanalu nyanta kela nyoye nyo kanta laleti kanyo komo kanta.
We make so that the report or the recommendations are implemented.
Nsaja fana nyabe sio nyama ya marolu nin kangulu menube bola jang isi wolu londi ya tama wolula kake kuti me ya lonko asike.
For me, that is my expectation.
Ntele wole munaji koti.
And I hope it would.
Andu mbejikirin ko fo asake wo nya fana.
I thank everybody.
Ngamobe numbara.
The commissioners, the members, lead counsel, Mr. Fall.
Commissionalu menu bebe du ko la jang ani lead counsel Mr. Fall.
All the counsel and the counsel that led me, Council Sagar.
Ani council me ya lon ko le tambita nyato biten council Sagar.
I'm grateful, I'm honored.
Nyinketa nyebunyani horomoti bake de fanan.
So I thank you all.
Moto mbali benu mbara la mbali jaila.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Conteh. We should be the ones to thank you for your service to the country.
Mr. Conteh inumbara bake mfanalu be jaila bitu mtele nyantete fanan numbara la ye do ko menke ila bankoe.
We really am sorry that things ended as the way they should not have ended.
Akitam fanali ni kuyati kulu nata laba nyaming amanya na laba na wanyama umanke kulu kenyati.
I do hope that you get another opportunity to serve the country that we all love.
Mbenyi njiko soto la nganyi njiko soto ko fo bunda do sina yele isi do ko kela banko e nyame nyama.
It's not been easy for you. It's not been easy for the country at all.
Amang sona ya itefangoye ando amang sono ya banko fana wale nyama nyisanji muani mfulo kono.
But you demonstrated your commitment to service the country and the people.
Bari yela wakilo ninsayo yitandi purka do ko ke ila banko moliye anila banko fango.
Under very difficult circumstances.
Ando aketa watu metebe do ko kela aketa wati kolengoleti nuutumo.
And most of the time, very discouraging circumstances.
Andu otembo kulle kakemeni alonko jikilate kulle multi wati ube.
But we thank you for your service and thank you for your testimony.
Mbe numbara la ila uduku kendo kang mbe numbara la fanang ila sede aroka.
I think you can perhaps go back to sleep now and rest a bit more.
Aparaka ngamira sila yesi muru yeta yela yesino demanding yedaha.
Waking up at 7 o'clock to go through 3 hours of testimony is not easy.
Kawuli talawro ula kanadu montoro wati saba sede andiro kono amanke kusono yarentide.
Thank you again very much.
Bare kotake inumbara kende ke kotake.
Councillor, are we ready with some witnesses for the afternoon? If we are, we'll take a break and come back at 3 o'clock.
Mr. Chair, yes, we are.
Beg your pardon?
We are. We have witnesses who are waiting for the afternoon session.
Good.
Thank you.
We will take a break and come back at 3 p.m. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Right,